Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Innovators Livecast series. My name is Diana Dilworth. Welcome to today's event, C-Suite and Marketing Leadership. I want to thank everyone for being here, our speakers, sponsors, and listeners. Today, we will be hearing from bright minds in companies like Restaurant Brands International, Procter & Gamble, Vestiaire Collective, Fiverr, Lycra, and more. The Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen can be used to ask questions. We'll get them at the end of each session. That chat widget is there too for our audience and listeners at home. You can use that to connect with attendees and discuss the event in real time. And now it's time to introduce today's MC from the company Intersection. Please welcome to the stage Nicola Lewis, Global Chief Growth Officer at Finecast. Hi, Nicola.
Hi there. Hi, Dana. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Excellent. Well, we're so excited to have you here and to kick off this great program. So I will let you take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you. So hello and welcome. And firstly, I'm thrilled to be with you here today and to have the absolute honor to introduce some exceptional speakers from around the globe. My name is Nicola Lewis. I am the Global Chief Growth Officer of Finecast, WPP and GroupM's addressable television solution. So just a little bit about what I do. First, since joining the Global Finecast family in January this year, I've been privileged enough to be at the forefront of one of the most exciting sectors in our industry and to sit down with our agency partners and clients around the globe and to discuss their total addressable television transformation. And that, of course, has been against the backdrop of an industry whose transition to an addressable world has been irreversibly accelerated, specifically during 2020 and, of course, into 2021. Importantly, at Finecast, we work hand in hand with the television industry in each market that we're live in. And it's by taking this approach that we continue to ensure that the TV industry around the world thrives and that we as consumers can watch great content every day, continuously, on that amazing big creative canvas in each of our households. So today we have a huge amount of great content for you. If you do miss anything, please note that we, of course, will be recording the entirety of the event, which can be found on YouTube after today's sessions end. And so with that, and without further ado, let's start up our first fireside chat. So please welcome to the stage Antonio Marquez, EMEA CMO, Restaurant Brands International, and our moderator, Iggy Diaz, Global Client Leader for Danone at WPP. Welcome, Antonio and Iggy.
Thanks, Nicola. Thank you very much. Hello, Antonio.
Thanks, Nicola. Hi, Iggy.
Hope your day is going well, Antonio. Well, what a way of starting this session of today with you. I mean, if we think about C-suite and marketing leadership, I don't think there's any other company as RBI that talks about those two things coming together. So I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak 30 minutes, very relaxed, just enjoy our time here and speak a bit about the work that you're doing over there, Antonio. So just
Thanks for having me, guys.
I'll give you the word. So just as an intro for everyone, Restaurant Brands International, they have 3 brands underneath the corporate brand. That is Burger King, Popeyes, and Tim Hortons. They're present in more than 100 countries with those brands. It's a $33 billion company in terms of sales every year. And they have more than 27,000 restaurants around the world. So as a startup, to introduce yourself, Antonio, if you can tell us a bit about yourself. And I'm going to ask you, what does the CMO at RBI do? And now being the chief, I have to read it, the Chief Brand Officer for Burger King. If you can talk a bit about that to start.
Again, thanks, Iggy, and thanks, Brand Innovators, for having us today. Yeah, a little bit about myself. So I'm Antonio, I'm Portuguese. I started my career a long time ago, maybe too long ago, at Danone, Portugal. And then I did my marketing career, Portugal, Spain, Poland, and lastly, I was a vice president in the marketing team in Paris. So then I moved to RBI. So I'm now 2 years in this great company. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I love traveling, and I love my job. So, yeah. To your question concretely, well, we fundamentally focus on growing the business and the sales, right? This is the key thing that we obsess. We really put our energy in finding all the opportunities, obviously, to strengthen the brand equity across the 3 brands, driving the right communication, engaging, relevant communication that is able to strengthen the brand equity, obviously, while connecting with the consumers. Another big pillar of our work is innovation, right? So how do we, finding the right consumer insights and how we translate this into product innovations that are meaningful for people's lives. Another big pillar is also something that we're focusing very much these days is how can we improve the guest experience, not only in the restaurants, but more on digital as well. Because after the pandemic, I think all the industry had an explosion on the remote channels on digital. So everything related, obviously, with your experience in the restaurant, that the staff is motivated, they're welcoming, they serve you well, the food is properly done, you don't wait, high quality experience. And then on digital, again, the same logic, also the channels are seamless, easy to use, personalized. So all this work on guest experience is very central to our job. What can I say more?
On Chief Brand Officer for Burger King, what's the job about? How does
I think
become a CMO?
Yeah, so it's very fresh. I just started this new appointment, so literally 2 days ago. So I think what's changing is, changing is the scale, right? Up to now, I was focusing on EMEA. Now it's a global role. It's true that also in EMEA, I was more focusing on obviously important strategic work, but more rolling out, implementation, acceleration, connecting with the local insights, etc. At the global level, I think it's going to be more strategic work, on branding, on positioning, on the key platforms for innovation, and how, again, we can step change the service and the overall guest experience, right? But all in all, I would say that in collaboration with our local partners, our local franchisees, the creative agencies, our suppliers, and so on. The main focus is drive the business, strengthen the brand equity, drive innovation, and the guest experience more and more central in the agenda.
Super. One disclaimer, sorry for the ambulance. We're in Paris, ambulances are quite loud. So apologies if that noise comes in. And yeah, so your job as Chief Brand Officer is very premature. So, you're discovering it. So I'm not going to push you on those questions because, as you said, you're kind of figuring it out right now. And just an anecdote, Antonio was saying to me that, his day has now stretched, a lot. So he's now also working over the night to connect with the US. So I hope you're getting some sleep, Antonio, over the last 48 hours.
Yeah, most of the team is there, right? So the global team is based in Miami, most of it. So yeah, I'm doing a little bit of double shifts these days, but it's fun and super exciting. Also discovering the team and so on and so on. So it's fantastic.
And talking about fun, one of the biggest marketing celebrities in the world has been Fernando Machado. Yes, and I'm sure he has left a big legacy at RBI about how to drive marketing and about how to push ideas. Can you tell us a bit about that legacy and then what are the things that we, probably should know about what people have been brought up with having someone like Fernando as a leader of marketing?
Yeah, well, Fernando is Fernando, right? So I think it's one of a kind, and everybody knows him, and he's in my opinion, he's a genius. And his work was celebrated globally, like I said, with so many accolades that is almost an infinite list. So that's amazing. But I would say that probably the most important work, if there's a way to say this, is really to install marketing as a key pillar of RBI, right? I think he did an amazing job in setting the language, bringing the concepts, the tools, developing the team, attracting marketing talent, in all the areas from consumer insights to innovation. Obviously, communication, I think, is probably the most visible work on visual identity across the board. So I think it made marketing an integral part of the operating system of the RBI. And now, yeah, it's really part of the company culture, and marketing is seen as a driving force to actually achieve or to grow in the direction of our big dream at RBI, which is to create the most loved restaurant brands in the world. So I think, in summary, I think he made marketing a key pillar of the company culture and the way the company works. Yeah.
So let me ask you push on that a bit more. So this talks about C-suite and marketing, right? What Antonio, I think, did for a lot of marketers around the world was introducing the importance of, reintroducing the importance of marketing into the C-suite. So how does that relationship work at RBI between marketing and the C-suite? I mean, you're in the C-suite, so how is that dialogue happening up there?
Yeah, I think the thing I love about RBI is that there's a strong alignment that starts with this vision, this dream of building the most loved restaurant brands in the world. Excuse me. So I think that's where everything starts, right? So we share that dream. And I think the C-suite sees the marketing department, the work we do, really, really fundamental to grow in the direction of that dream, right? And they understand, and I think this is also legacy from Fernando, right? But right now it's very clear across the organization that when you really launch a superior innovation, really leveraging deep consumer insights with a fantastic consumer story, this drives the business, right? So obviously the C-suite, including myself, we are very business oriented, but they understand, we understand that, innovation drives the business. A fantastic communication campaign helps to strengthen the brand equity, and it drives the business, sometimes both in the short term and in the long run. So I think the top management of the company sees that. They understand design, they see the value of a great visual identity, great communication, great innovation. The guest experience, as I said at the beginning, is something that we're driving from the marketing perspective. but also in close collaboration with all the other departments. So I think there is a good understanding of how marketing can really drive the company agenda, grow the top line, also contribute to the P&L, because obviously when we work on innovation, we look at profitability. When we look at communication, we always look at investment and et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a good understanding that marketing is a fundamental pillar like the other departments, and that contributes to drive the business and achieve our big dream. Another thing that I think is cool in the company is that I feel trusted, right? So, and my team feels trusted by the C-suite. So I think that obviously there's always challenge and there's a dialogue internal. There's attrition, like it should be, that's also in this dialogue that the ideas grow and evolve. But overall, we feel very trusted and with space to work autonomously and to drive the marketing agenda. So I think we are in a good place from that perspective.
Yeah, I think it's, from the outside, it's a company that many other companies are envying. And many of us marketers envy, that trust, that freedom that you get, that apparently you get, to drive ideas forward. So let me ask you on that. Being at the speed of culture, that's one of the things that you always see with Burger King is, Popeyes is important, so maybe it's the same thing happening with those brands. But one of the things that you see always is that Burger King is at the speed of what's happening out there, and you're fast to react to what's happening out there. How do you achieve that? What's the secret for the company for being so fast and nimble in showing up and standing out all the time?
Yes, it's becoming intuitive for us. Let me try to explain it in a sharp way, right? Sometimes these things, they become part of your DNA and you don't know exactly how to verbalize it, but let me try to be succinct here for the audience. I think the fundamental thing is really to understand deeply the brand positioning, right? To be all the teams, they, even independently of the specific areas they are working on, if it's innovation, communication, design, or media, or independently of the area itself, I think all the teams, they really live deeply, understand the brand positioning, right? What the brand stands for, the values, the brand personality, the tonality. So I think that's fundamental, right? And then the second thing, is that everybody is quite attentive what's happening in the news, in culture, right? So, and I think the moment we see something that, in the news cycle or happening in culture or independently of the source, let's say, of that event, the moment we see something that we see that can be BK or that can be Popeyes, or Tim Hortons, we try to jump on it, because it makes sense for the brand, makes sense for the business. We can connect with that. So that's a little bit the internal perspective, if you want. The same happens with our creative partners. So they fully understand the brand, and they're always very attentive to what's happening, right? So, and with that, let's say, intersection of really understanding the brands and being attentive to what's happening outside, we just do it when there's an opportunity. So I don't know, a couple of examples I love trying to illustrate here. So in France during the pandemic, the industry was suffering, not only BK, our main competitors, but all the restaurant industry. the restaurants were just closed. There was not a question of a drop in business. It was like a 100% drop in business. So as you can imagine, that's very painful. And the only way that the restaurant industry had to survive was actually to leverage the remote channels, digital, to do still some business, right? Delivery was at some point in time, was literally the only possibility to do some business. And at PK, Burger King, we're lucky because we were developing the digital channels with anticipation. So we already had a big chunk of the business coming from digital and delivery before the pandemic. But this was not the case to all the other restaurants, and particularly the small restaurants, right? That they don't have the infrastructure. So understanding this societal issue or industry issue, and also the concern of the French population of not knowing if the restaurants could collapse, and so on and so on. So something that was very central to the news cycle in that moment. And also knowing the brand. So the French team, what they did is they started with a campaign. In the Sunday papers, a very simple campaign, a great copy from our creative partners, but actually, asking the population to help the restaurant industry by ordering, whatever food they liked, being BK or being the local sushi shop or being the local baguette or whatever. So we started this campaign promoting for people to order from any restaurant. And the headline, we made it, with the headline of order from McDonald's, order from whatever restaurant you want, order from BK, because our offer is amazing as well, but basically order. And we made our digital channels available for the small restaurants that didn't have the digital infrastructure to advertise their food. So I love this example because it's something that is very, alive in the society, is a big tension, is a concern. It's something that fits the brand positioning, the brand tonality. And the French team immediately jumped into it, did this campaign that became very popular because, you were connecting with something that was quite relevant for the French population. And then he flew around the world because actually that issue was not only French, but was very prevalent across most of the countries. So that campaign was used in several geographies, became very popular. I think it's a good example of understanding the brand, understanding the insights, and jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, we're going to have 5 minutes for questions. So if anyone has questions, just type them on the chat, and we'll try to take them at the back end. But there's so many things that I wanted to ask Antonio that let's hope that we have time to do everything. Antonio, you just walked around. Working with the industry, the way that Burger King works with the industry. And one of your arch rivals that also gives a lot of meaning to Burger King is McDonald's. Yes. And we've seen Burger King being very cheeky, right? Kind of playing with McDonald's many times on, whatever is happening in culture and, kind of augmenting your share of voice with them. So I wanted to ask, how does that, how do you work when you need to go and talk about McDonald's or Wendy's or, some of your competitors?
It's a good one. But I think the fundamental, the starting point is a deep respect from regarding our main competitors, right? So it's a deep respect that they do a great job. They lead the category. So everything starts from that premise, right? We don't want to go over over the line, right? So it's always with a logic of deep respect. And then when we see an opportunity that we can, from this respect perspective, that we can leverage something regarding our competitors that is true to BK and fits again our positioning. Like I was saying before, we tend to jump into it, again, respectfully, but tongue in cheek and sometimes a little bit edgy. Everything that fits our strategic agenda, we do it, right? So sometimes it's an internal reflection. Obviously, we want always to be, like I was saying, not going too far, because at the end of the day, again, always from a respectful perspective. I love an example that we had in the Nordics in Finland. Part of the BK brand positioning is about authenticity in people, right? So, and we are all in for diversity. Everybody is welcomed. We respect everybody in the same manner, etc. So, and usually we do a sponsorship of the Pride Parade, and I love to what the Finnish team did. I'll try to show it here in the screen. Maybe it's not the best way for our audience, but here we goes with the iPad.
Let's see if it works.
So, yeah. So, right. So, I don't know if you guys can see.
What does the headlight say?
Love conquers all. It was in the context of diversity and everyone is welcomed, and diversity and inclusion, and it felt correct, right, with this message of love conquers all, to leverage our mascot and our main competitor's mascot. I think it's an example again within the logic of respecting the competitors, but also trying to have an engaging messaging communication that fits our brand positioning and help us to convey our strategic messages outside.
Excellent. Thanks, Antonio. I have one question, and I'm not going to leave it to the end because I think it's really good. Don't worry, it's not provocative. I think it's a very timely question. So we got it from Nadia Shipitsina. And it says, hi, Antonio, did marketing and media in particular become more important for RBI since pandemic has started?
I mean, I don't know if it became more important, right? Because I think what happened is like, what happened with the pandemic fundamentally is that with the restaurants closing, or forced to be closed due to the restrictions, what became very central was the fundamental importance of digital, right? The digital channels. So to the question, I wouldn't say that marketing became more important. What I think it changed a little bit the nature of our work and the priorities, right? So we full investment on the digital channels, really perfecting the interface, the experience, making it as seamless as possible, as personalized as possible, to reduce any point of friction, when you order, when the easiness that you have to find your favorite food in our menu, to be totally frictionless when you pay, etc., etc. So that I think the pandemic brought a further attention to those details that before the pandemic were not so, let's say, central to the day-to-day agenda, and during the pandemic that was very important. Another point that comes with the question is about media. Media, obviously, with our partners suffering with the reduction of the business in the restaurants, obviously we needed to re-equate all the investment in media. And here the line of thought or the big logic to work with our partners was yes, we're suffering in the business, but let's resist to the temptation to go dark on media. Because we know that if we go dark, obviously you start to erode your brand equity sooner or later, and then you're gonna pay it hard later in time, right? So all there was a very detailed work on keeping the brand, the media communication, keeping connecting with people, being relevant during the pandemic. So I would say those were the two big shifts that the pandemic brought us.
Very cool, Antonio. Super cool. I'm going to talk about something that also has been happening throughout the last couple of years, and now it's starting to become bigger and bigger, which is plant-based. Yes, and we're seeing Burger King, moving aggressively into plant-based, or at least what I see in the news is that you're becoming very aggressive on plant-based. Can you tell us a bit more about, how are you getting into plant-based and how, as a marketer, you're approaching, new consumers, right? New, diets like, flexitarians, and what is the challenge for you as a marketer at RBI in jumping into this new trend?
So it's a fact that there's a food revolution going on. More and more people are becoming flexitarians. Some evolve to go vegetarians, and even some go to vegan. So obviously we see this, and what we see again when we connect with consumers and working on insights is that actually half of the QSR population is flexitarian, right? So these segments, they're looking for something that is better for them. They perceive better fitting their lifestyle. They're looking for something that is better for the planet. They perceive that, and it's more sustainable planet-wise. And they want still to keep a great taste, right? So these are the three fundamental needs of flexitarians. And knowing this, obviously, we have the opportunity to cater for these needs and for this flexitarian target, always delivering the unique Burger King taste experience, right? Our famous flame grilled that people love, always very tasty, and a great solution, great taste, better for them, better for the planet. So it's something that we are following attentively, and we've been rolling out across our key countries with a great consumer adoption. So it's something that is not only making the news, but also starting to have a significant importance in our sales. So it's something that we see growing also on the long run. So and we keep pushing with having great products to cater to these needs.
I was on mute. Antonio, I know you had to rush into another meeting. That your agenda is quite packed, and also your schedule is now running late into the night. So I won't hold you much more. I want to. First, it's been a pleasure because thanks to Brand Innovators, we reconnected. We worked together a lot when you were at Danone, and it's a pleasure to be seeing you, doing so well, and as the head of marketing at RBI at Europe, and now Chief Brand Officer. And personally, I want to wish you, the best of luck in that new role. I don't know if you want to leave any message to the audience before we leave.
Well, thanks, Iggy. Really cool to reconnect. Missed you. We had great times working together in Paris, and so great partner. Really cool. To the audience, guys, we have a lot of opportunities, so you know where to find me. We're looking for great marketing talent, so very keen to keep in touch, and maybe there's opportunities to join RBI. I think it's a great company where marketing, as I was saying, is a central pillar on everything that we do. So if you guys are interested, very open to start a conversation and to see if there are cool opportunities for you guys.
This is a true story, yeah? Because Antonio has been pestering me every day saying, we need talent. Can you please send us talent? So,
yeah. I think we have a great team, but obviously we're growing, and there's further opportunities to keep building the team. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Antonio. Cool. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Iggy.
Take care.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Antonio and Iggy. Really great conversation and a lovely insight into RBI and its culture specific to marketing. And Antonio, specifically to you, thank you for sharing your insights. I think to hear about the importance you place at Restaurant Brands International on brand equity, specifically ensuring that strategies are always engaging and relevant, is really powerful, that you have a constant drive for innovation and of course finding the right insights to connect you to your consumers' life, all whilst relentlessly focusing on the guest experience itself. And of course, for the point that you mentioned both at the beginning of the session and at the end of the session, which is the importance placed on marketing within the RBI business as a core driver of revenue and ultimately sales, and sat very core to the cultural center of RBI. So thank you so much. So look, next up, we're going to be hearing from Pankaj Bahala, Senior Vice President and General Manager of Procter & Gamble International for Europe Grooming. Pankaj leads P&G's $3 billion Europe grooming business, which includes iconic brands such as Gillette, Venus, Braun, Daisy, Satin Care, as well as recently launched brands with King G, Gillette, and Sunny. And in his current role, he's responsible for sales, profit, value creation, market share, innovation, communication, and commercial selling for all 10 European market clusters, covering Western, Central, Eastern Europe, Turkey, and Israel. He leads a multifunctional team of over 300 employees, serving over 100 million consumers, leading grooming brands that enjoy leadership positions, both regionally and globally. It's wonderful to have you here today, and over to you.
Nicola, thank you so much for having me, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to anyone who's joined this session, no matter where you've dialed in from. I am speaking to you from Geneva, Switzerland, which happens to be Procter & Gamble's European headquarters and also the home of Gillette, Venus, and Braun Europe. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak to all of you today. Over the next 20 minutes or so, I want to take the opportunity to share with you the transformation that has taken place on one of our brands from a digital ecosystem standpoint. And that brand is Braun, B-R-A-U-N, a major appliance brand that exists all over the world, but is particularly large and meaningful here in Europe. I'm hoping that through this case study, I can share with you how the brand has transformed its business results from by being a more digitally native brand, even though it has a very non-digitally native start. But first, let me actually start by introducing you to this Braun brand itself. What are our guiding principles and values that have shaped us? It so happens that 2021 is the 100th year of the Braun business, the Braun brand in existence. It was born out of Germany here in Europe, and it's spread all over the world and is now $1 billion+ business in itself. I'm hoping to introduce you to this brand by the small video that encapsulates what Braun stands for. To be simple, to be useful, and to make things that are built to last. Have a look at the Braun story.
In times of change, we remember what truly matters. Each other. We remember that what's valuable isn't status or titles. It's the everyday things in life. At Braun, we believe in the importance of the everyday things, and we believe good design can make them happen. Because what matters isn't the complex things, it's the simple things. What matters isn't unnecessary things, it's useful things. And the things that matter aren't wasteful or disposable. They're built to last. At Braun, we've designed for what matters for 100 years. Here's to 100 more.
So it's the 100th birthday of Braun. And even though Braun may not be something you think about every day, or Braun designs might not be something you have deep dived into, actually many of the things that you use every day have been inspired by Braun design. Google Braun calculator just for fun. And then if you happen to have an Apple device, look at your calculator. It's the same calculator. Steve Jobs sent us a note while he was still running Apple that most of the inspiration he's gotten for designing the simple features of the original Apple iPhone and even the iPod were inspired by Braun. The classical prototype of a juicer mixer grinder, the classical watch that's simple and effective, the classical dry shaver that you use to groom yourself, that prototype, that shape, that way of being, that's all come over 100 years and 6 generations of Braun designers. And it's this year that we celebrate Braun. And the philosophy that we believe in, as you clearly saw, is to make things simple, useful, and built to last by designing for what matters. Right now, the major business that we are in are appliances, and the focus on making those appliances is on quality and design. Now, the consumer and whatever the consumer needs are always the starting point of any innovation we do on this business, and it is almost always based on a very simple sentence that we write on the start of all of the books that we do on Braun. Any new project, any new initiative, we start with a simple sentence. Whatever we do should be useful. So we are therefore in some ways very, very focused and obsessed about solving consumer problems in real ways and ultimately enhancing the human experience. Now, today, I will focus on discussions on how Braun changed in the last 5 years. How it went from being in just electro stores like Media Mart and Best Buy, if you happen to be dialing in from the US, to how it's gone to becoming a digitally native brand that is relying tremendously on its growth online. It's even more important for Braun than many of the other brands that we sell. More than half of our total revenue, and as I said, we are over $1 billion in sales, is actually coming from online now. And each quarter, each year, the salience of our business online keeps getting higher, better, and more meaningful. But first, let me begin with a simple spoiler that you see in front of you. Our digital transformation that has impacted our business results in a way that you've never seen before didn't happen all of a sudden. Yes, Braun Europe is now the market leader. In the 5 major markets of Western Europe, it's taken leadership from challenger position, something in the work for over a decade. But this growth has not come overnight. It's meticulously planned over 10 years. So the seeds of the case that I'm about to share with you are seeds that were planted over a long period of time. I have, however, learned that there are ways to accelerate the process from seeding to full-fledged growth. I'm hoping to encapsulate that for you in a way that's palatable, digestible, reapplicable, no matter where you are on your individual digital journey, either with a client or with your own brand and business. Braun Europe has experienced pretty exceptional business momentum in the last 18 months, in particular, the period of COVID. As the world was going and facing the pandemic, our overnight success was getting even more accelerated. This past financial year was our 9th consecutive year of record-breaking growth, both offline and online, but led by online. But I want to tell you the story is less about external COVID context-triggered growth and more about consistency of business results when you have a simple framework to be digitally native, even though every single part of a digitally native ecosystem constantly changes. The grooming appliances business has historically been very predictable. It actually has a very predictable part to purchase. We, as I told you, sell mostly appliances, things that cost meaningful sums of money. This is not for 5, 10 euros or dollars. So the path in buying products in the categories we participate in almost always begins with search. Then it leads to a visit in a physical store, and then many days later, and sometimes many months later, it may lead to a purchase online or offline. So if we are selling dry shavers for 300 euros, it's not like you go and buy dry shavers on Amazon. You spend a lot of time researching, comparing, recalibrating, assessing, sometimes even visiting stores to physically see the shaver in your hand. And then you may choose to buy it there or somewhere else. But that takes time. We also tend to sell things that don't run out fast. So when you do buy something from Braun, it usually lasts at least 5 to 7 years, if not longer. So just in the pandemic, when salons and barber shops were closing down, the amount of search and interest for the categories we sell in, whether it was grooming appliances or other appliances, was going up. Consumers were searching at a faster rate, and they were doing so in numbers of the likes we've never seen before. Interestingly, not only were they buying things that we knew that they would be buying in smaller numbers before, but they also bought new jobs that they wanted to be done. Jobs such as wanting to permanently remove hair on their body or wanting to cut head hair. I'm sure all of you experienced that in the lockdown at some stage. You were wondering, how can I cut my hair? This shift was already visible in 2 weeks in the March of 2020, when the first COVID lockdown began in Europe. Our pivot, which was already in the making for a little while, accelerated even more so during this short frame of time. The framework that I want to talk to you looks at vectors of superiority. There are things that make your brand successful, viable, sustainable, and needed. Those vectors, or vectors of superiority as we call them, are product, packaging, communication, value to your seller, reseller, retailer, value to your consumer, the importance of sustainability, and of course, the importance of online salience. When all 7 vectors of superiority come together, you're able to deliver an irresistible experience to your shopper. All our vectors of superiority on the Braun business in Europe were already in a good shape until this COVID period started. But what we did in March and April and May of 2020 has now become the framework and the basis of what we'll be doing for decades to come. It wasn't really rocket science. It was taking every single vector of superiority that I've referenced to you and making it sharper, deeper, more meaningful for the shopper in a way that is sustained. We improved our products with our biggest product upgrades at the same time. We made sure that all our segments in which we participate were all available physically and mentally. And we were also making sure that any new needs that were to emerge were available to us to seed when needed. For example, women realized that they couldn't go to salons, and they also realized that while they needed hair to be removed, they were wondering, how much money does it cost to constantly keep going to salons to remove hair? We spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of euros over multiple times. Shouldn't we just look at the possibility, perhaps, of buying this so-called laser IPL devices to remove hair from the body permanently, forever, for good? So search for IPL exploded. One of the brands that were offering IPL solutions that were safe, viable, and good value was Braun. So our IPL sales went off the charts. All of this changed in hours. not days or weeks. Our entire supply plan was fully reconstructed. Our e-content was revised to be most relevant to be present and to be more meaningful against what consumers were looking for. We even engaged with our brick and mortar retail partners to step change their brick and click plans because we knew most electronic stores in Europe and the world were shut. But their business wasn't, as long as we could fulfill it online. We also made sure that our brand advertising was actually at its highest. So in COVID, with electronic shows shut down and categories generally thinking of what to do, the advertising of Braun was at its highest in 5 years. Not only was the amount of money important, but what we communicated is important, because all of this was also accompanied by superior communication. We leveraged mass media, one-on-one communication, to make sure that we leveraged the best of precision digital marketing. This is probably the heart of the case study that I want to share with you. If you were a 22-year-old male looking for a beard trimmer under 100 euros, what message would work best for you? If you were a 32-year-old woman wondering, why should you go to the salon when you can remove hair permanently using an IPL device? What would be the right message that worked for you? What barriers would you want tackled to be fully convinced to buy something that is hundreds of euros worth? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, oh, very good. So you were able to provide messaging based on audience subsets. Well done. Welcome to 2021. This is how digital works. I'm being even more specific than that. We were not designing communication for a specific large group of audiences that behaved in similar ways. We were designing communication almost by consumers, but still respecting GDPR and privacy laws. We were leveraging artificial intelligence to alter visualized communication in the way that showed up to you based on what is legally permissible to us to understand about your history. You see, we were not trying to get to superior communication in aggregate. We were trying to get to superior communication per consumer. And therein lies the magic. And we were able to quickly customize this for both efficiency and agility. This neither cost more money nor took more time. We were able to provide the strongest claims, the strongest value assessment, the best piece of communication, all of it as the consumer needed it, based on what the consumer had been searching for, and based on what that particular consumer had drifted in and out of. Like I told you, the path to purchase is long. One advantage of a long path to purchase is history. And as long as the history can be permitted legally, we were able to navigate and get to more superior communication to that sets of consumers, many of whom did behave in similar ways, in such that they were able to form clusters that were non-invasive on privacy. This communication superiority was compounded by a focus on getting the value right for our shopper, whether it was pure play or brick and click. It also helped that we were the only major appliances player not to miss supply. So as more and more consumers searched for something that we had planned to demand against in the past, the more we were able to improvise before we started on the journey earlier. Our business continue planning allowed us to be able to deliver on all the 7 vectors of superiority: product, packaging, communication, classical retail experience, online salience, consumer value, customer value, and do it in a way that is sustainable for the planet. The results that we've achieved on this business have exceeded our wildest expectations. Braun Europe has taken over market leadership in Western Europe, and we've gone from being followers to leaders in just 18 months. The reason why this has happened is because we were prepared to win in any context. When online exploded and demand for appliances and awareness and new jobs to be done within the appliances business grew, we were ready. When she wanted the IPL device and didn't want to go to salon, and she was wondering whether to buy waxes or creams or razors or epilators, we were there with precision one-to-one mass marketing, activated along this new path to purchase. That is what has allowed us to get exceptionally strong results, grow 29% in sales. In fact, what was fascinating about this case is the entire appliances business, the market grew, both online And when offline was available to open up, offline too. And both channels performed in extremely strong 20% plus growth salience. Braun led the growth. And we strongly believe that we succeed the most when the markets in which we operate succeed the most. And we competitively win some share within it. We've grown our consumer value metrics with less promotional activity and less price discounting, simply because consumers found what they were looking for at the value that made sense to them. And they were, because of the quality of the match, the value was high. As many of you know better than me, value and price can be two very separate things. You can find something of what you would call premium price, but with very good value. More of that was starting to happen through the last year and a half. Now, we are the first to admit to you that we always should operate within a price range, and pricing yourself out of the market is not good sense, no matter what the definition of value. So we were careful to be able to define that border very carefully. The last and final thing you need to know is the supply agility point was added by me because it was very important to be available in real time when people needed it. We made sure that we were ready to ship in under 2 days to people's home so that the benefit and the closure of this part to purchase happened faster than the journey leading up to it. This brings me to the 3 learnings we've had through this journey on Braun, a wonderful, well-designed brand that has gone from becoming completely not digitally native to completely digitally native. First, no matter what your business model, start by laying the foundations of a digital-first path to purchase early and often. If you don't know your consumer's digital path to purchase, there is no way that you can constantly improvise when the environment outside you changes. I'm intentionally not making this about digital tools. I'm not making this about platforms, but making it about the path to purchase itself. Once the path to purchase is clear, what happens when, why, then it becomes very easy to leverage platforms for your convenience rather than you being a slave to a particular platform, a particular algorithm, or a particular technology. Second, design an organization system that can pivot spending, platform management, creative, and support model all in real time. Our organizations actually don't have fixed jobs. They have fixed areas of mastery. They don't have a fixed work plan because we define the work plan as the total business results. And we define mastery in terms of depth by subtype. What they actually do day to day is improvise based on the reality that we see externally. Were we not organized that way, we would never have been able to improvise the way we improvised through the pandemic. Third, we need to focus on growing superiority on the 7 vectors I've mentioned. I'll repeat them again: product, packaging, communication, retailer impact, online salience, consumer value, your retailer or reseller's value, and the impact on sustainability. Once all 7 vectors of superiority come together, you know what's right for the consumer and what does the job best for him or her. And when you do that well enough, the first thing you're solving for is never price. What you're solving for is experience, design, and value. I'm not saying that these rules are the Bible. It's an example from one part of the world on one brand in one industry. But we do believe that these principles generally would stand the test of time as long as it always begins with the path to purchase, which is unique to every brand and every category. Hopefully, these 3 principles would help guide you through the years that would follow. While COVID might be entering a new phase of its life, volatility has not. Supply chain volatility, commodities volatility, foreign exchange volatility will go on for some time. Who knows, we may even enter a global hyperinflation environment. So the fact that things will be unpredictable will still be true. These principles could simply help you navigate that difficult prediction. Most of our business today, as I told you, is online, and we're poised to win because we were ready to define that reality. But I can tell you the total market benefited too. And I'm leveraging these principles in broad terms to make sure that we grow the 10th year, the 101st birthday of the Braun business, so that someone in the future can come back to a forum like this and talk about how Braun's growing 200 years, still making things simple, useful, and built to last. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share these thoughts.
Pankaj, thank you so much for sharing your core principles, and congratulations on your success with the Braun brand. I think the early point, you really spent some time talking about the fact that Braun as a brand is about simplicity, being useful, built to last, but staying true to the North Star of whatever Braun do. It should always be useful to the consumer. So thank you so much again for those core principles. I did now want to introduce Brian Weston, EVP, Global Account Director of Grey, to the stage, who's going to moderate our audience Q&A. Welcome to the stage, Brian.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me all right. And Pankaj, it is great to be back with you. I have to say, it's just overall, we've had some history together on another really storied brand for P&G during your time in North America. And so when I saw this opportunity to come, I could not pass it down. So it's wonderful just to see a couple of years later the success that you've brought to the European market, and the Braun story is really an amazing one. So just want to talk to you, just to have a little conversation over the next few minutes. And then anyone in the audience, if you've got any questions for Pankaj, please throw them up in the chat, and I can take those. So first off, again, yes, congratulations on the work that you've done. You mentioned some really advanced strategies and advanced targeting strategies using AI that adhere. First of all, you're being where the consumer is. You're giving them what they need, which is all sort of the principles of the Braun brand in general. So there's a really nice symmetry there. That also adhere to GDPR. I think a lot of brands, as you sort of look 2, 3, 4 years down the road, just reading the headlines, knowing consumer privacy laws are going to get even stronger. I know that first-party data is also very important, I'm sure, within the digital ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit about how you're anticipating some of those changes coming in and what role that plays?
Well, first of all, Brian, it's great to see you again. We do have many adventures together, and I'm grateful for you having taken the time to conduct this Q&A. So thank you, and good to see you again. It's a very important question you've raised. I'll answer it in 3 parts, if that's okay with you. The first part is, you must have noticed that in everything I said, I was very intentional to not make it about platforms and technologies and make it about part to purchase, because part to purchase is technology and platform resistant. All we know for sure is everything's going to change. In the next 10 years, almost every eco-environment and ecosystem around us, digitally speaking, will change. But if you know how the consumer moves through the chain from search to purchase, the clearer you are, the more resilient you can be in a changing environment, even as privacy laws get stronger, and even as its compliance gets widely accepted. So that's the first thing I want to reinforce is that's the philosophy everyone can take. Most of the times we begin digital conversations about platforms, technologies, and ecosystems, and we shouldn't do that. We should start with the consumer and tell me what he or she does at the beginning, and tell me what you want her or him to do at the end, and we'll map out what's the most efficient way to bridge that gap. So that's the first thing I would say, and I'll just keep repeating that till I'm heard by everyone. The second thing you raised was making sure that in a world where GDPR and privacy became strong, especially in the European Union, what do we do with the way that we contact and leverage consumer information? And there, the idea of first-party data is very relevant. And we've sort of grown even more assertive and obsessed about first-party data. And we have a natural advantage of a superior value exchange. And that's the heart. That's the 2 most important words I can share about first-party data. Value exchange. If both parties are exchanging meaningful value, the first-party data capture will not only be high quality, but will be sustainable. So the value exchange on our appliances business is warranty. When you buy something for $300, and I ask you, would you fill this warranty card? Because it will allow me to service the product if something goes wrong in it. So an obligation I'm now legally have to stand by. You will fill in a high-quality first-party data input back to the brand and the company. And so warranty is probably one of the strongest tools we use to get high-quality first-party data that allows us to keep the value exchange at a very high level. You are guaranteed, and in many years, it goes up to 5 years. 5 years we service the product in case something happens because we're built to last. And you, in return, give us high quality first party data as a consumer. So value exchange is the single most important variable to ensure the validity as the environment changes. And the third thing I would say is we've defined our ecosystem, part to purchase. We've defined our interchange, value exchange. It's also important to make sure that the brand keeps updating its superiority vectors to the new definition as laid down by the consumer based on this value exchange. The expectations are changing. So for example, if the expectation is that your products are built to last, they need to be built to last. You need to deliver superior product. But in case something happens to them, you need a superior consumer value equation, which was one of the 7 vectors, that allows you to service it and deliver back to the consumer so it survives another decade or more. So that's the way I would think of answering your question, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned some of the advantages. One of the other advantages I think to the consumer that P&G delivers really is, even within Braun, you've got multi-methods. But then when you expand to the other grooming brands, when it comes to Gillette and Venus, you would understand that sort of a digital path to purchase. I mean, think of all of the different tools that you can use within the P&G family for grooming. So talk to me a little bit about sort of the learnings that you've gotten on Braun and how starting to sort of apply those to some of those other brands that you also oversee.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. If you take a step back, the business I'm in is in the hair removal, hair styling, hair trimming business. You got hair on your body, you don't want it, or you want it to look different, I'm your man. As cheesy and as dangerous as that sounds. And so Gillette and Venus are 2 other brands that we retail, very successful, multi-billion-dollar brands. And we're learning that our digital nativity and our approach on Braun is very infectious and can easily be translated to the other businesses. But that would be the linear approach, right? That would be what logically would make sense. You've learned something good on one brand, it's in a similar industry as your other brands, just transfer the information. We're not doing that. What we're actually doing is not thinking brand first, but thinking job first. And because you said we are in the hair removal and hair maintenance and hairstyling business, the job to be done is never defined by brand. No consumer says, I want to do this brand first. People say, I want to do this job. I want to shave. I want to remove hair permanently. I want to style my beard. I want to trim my chest hair, so on and so forth. So the way that we've translated the information across brands is job specific and not brand specific. And then it so happens that based on the strength of the technology and the ability to satisfy the consumer, we choose and present the brand that's best suited for that job. And so that's how the information is translated. It has, but not by brand, by job. And that's what makes Omni relevant, because Omni or digital ecosystems are never predefined. When you go to a physical store, there's a blades and razors section. There's a dry shavers section. But when you're searching for grooming on Amazon.co.uk, it's a conglomerate of options that are brought to you because your search was broad. And most consumer search tends to be broad. So that's the way that we're thinking of cross-pollinating this information. And internally, we refer to that as the one grooming approach, because it's really about grooming through jobs framework rather than product solutions through brand framework.
No, that I think that's well said. And I think you've spoken so much about sort of how we're going to show up differently in 5 years, and how you have shown up differently from the past 5 years. We just think the velocity of change, and you alluded to this, is going to continue to happen. Organizationally, how do you keep up? Organizationally, both sort of on the inside within P&G, and how have teams been structured differently? I assume that you can't just have the same engine and expect a completely different output. Both sort of internally and then also externally, the types of vendors that you work with, the type of external partners that you work with. How has that changed? What's the sort of learning curve on this been for you, and any advice to those who want to take those 3 steps? I know you said it's not the Bible, but as they're looking to sort of reinvent, what should they do on the inside to be able to better sort of ramp up for success?
It's a very relevant question. The first thing, as you know, Brian, and we experienced it together on Gillette as well in the US, it takes a village. So the first acknowledgement is the number of stakeholders that we would need horizontally and vertically are meaningful for the change to be for the change to feel sustained. So that's the first conversation, is just acknowledging the breadth and depth of individuals that need to be constantly evolving and learning to be able to get you to a competitive position in each generation. Successive generations of marketers and business builders will laugh at us that in the 2000s or 2010s, or sometimes even in 2020s, we have something called digital manager, search manager, and it will seem archaic very shortly down the line. It already does. So one of the things we're trying to do in building organizations and this village collective capability is to make sure that everyone is digitally fluent. And it's very difficult to be digitally fluent forever, in perpetuity, but it is possible to be digitally fluent in point in time. So we actually run programs where all our jobs are now digitally native roles. And within digitally native roles, they are at different levels of digital fluency, depending upon the impact they need to bring to the business and the brand. And each individual is expected to upgrade their digital fluency to a certain level, which are predefined and mathematically measurable, so that we are constantly evolving to the reality of the external world. For example, we went from decision-making frameworks to algorithms to artificial intelligence. Those are increasing levels of digital fluency based on increased changes in the environment. So the first thing is to acknowledge it's a village. The second thing is to develop a program that focuses on completely functionally agnostic digital fluency, where you don't have digital jobs and non-digital jobs, you just have jobs that are at different levels of digital fluency. And the third one is influencing each other externally, internally, with agency partners such as yourself and many others, to constantly push the envelope on what new pilots and experiments to run. And this is the cornerstone of A/B testing, the cornerstone of piloting in that the digital ecosystem has gifted us as at low cost and high speeds. But we find ourselves always in a position where we're questioning each other's approach to the business model, so that the digital fluency on both sides is keeping up with each other's pace. And I'll be the first to tell you that many times it's our side, it's the P&G side that hasn't kept up with the need to pilot and learn. We are looking for preciseness in a completely imperfect world. And so we leverage external partners to make sure that reconciliation makes sense. And the digital fluency flows both ways, not just vertically, going from a beginner to a master, but also horizontally, going from one vantage point to another vantage point. That's the way we're thinking. That's the way we're approaching it. And that approach could work for everyone. The minute you define for precision and you define for finite time units, we will struggle with surviving in this digital ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great. And I think that it makes me think, I mean, you do talk about, I mean, we live in an increasingly complex digital ecosystem, and I think that we all hear as marketers, I think everyone, the audience here, you hear about addressable media, and you hear about performance marketing and programmatic and DCO, and then you've got lots of pilots where we're looking to do all of this. And then you think, and maybe this is the traditionalist in me thinking, so who's looking after the brand? And how does it all hold together? I mean, I think, Pankaj, some of the work that we did together, telling meaningful brand stories, was really important. How, with all of this sophistication and with all of these different pilots going on, how do you see the forest through the trees and really live the spirit of what that Braun video was about on a day-to-day basis, and make sure that there's time for that?
You've raised a question, Brian, that is the source of many sleepless nights. To not lose the forest from the trees. We have gone many times to a position where the digital ecosystem is the master and not the slave. You must have noticed that when I started speaking, I started with the Braun video first. That video is new, and it has gone back in history to look at what is it that made Braun, what gave us this multi-billion dollars worth of sales. And it came down to very simple things, right? Braun is simple, it's useful, and it's built to last. Those are very prophetic words if taken seriously, which they deserve to be taken as. I think what we always tend to do in the work that we do is we always punctuate all of our work, all of our journeys with milestones. And in each of those milestones, we stop and we say, are we true to those three principles? Is this simple, useful, and built to last? And that's why it's principle-based and not platform-based. That's why it's easy to explain versus difficult to explain. That's why I didn't need a data scientist to join me, and I could speak with some reasonable level of confidence about what we had achieved, because it was simple, useful, and built to last. Keeping the North Star of your brand at the heart of every development of your digital ecosystem is critical. Otherwise, you start losing your voice, losing your authenticity. And as you know better than me, consumers are very quick to catch on to that. And the skepticism can spread quickly, thereby defeating the purpose for which you are adapting to a new ecosystem in any case. So it's the North Star. So we keep going back in history and keep reviving and reminding ourselves of why is it that we do what we do. We do things because we make them simple, useful, and built to last. And they're designed for what truly matters. That means paraphernalia doesn't work. And there are many times where we see things that are more than core, paraphernalia more than necessary. And then we remind ourselves that this is probably not the right way to approach it. So that's what keeps it at heart. Or Gillette, when you and I worked, it was always about the best a man can get. And what does each of those words mean? The best a man can get. Constantly reminding yourself would keep you on the path. And that's what we hope to do with all of our brands.
That's great. Well said. Well, Pankaj, I know you're a busy man, and I wanted to just thank you and thank Brand Innovators for bringing us back together and catching up like this. So it's been wonderful. Wish you continued success, and I'm sure our paths will cross soon.
Always a pleasure, my friend. And Nicola and the team at Brand Innovators, thank you for your time. I'm always available. If you have any questions, the team will be happy to share my email ID, and I'm happy to answer any thoughts and questions you had. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you so much, both. And thank you so much for that offer. I'm sure there will be many people on this call that take that offer up, myself included. That was really, really interesting and really insightful. So thank you very much. So moving along, last week we had the chance to catch up with Arnaud Collin, who's the Chief Revenue Officer for Vestiaire Collective, and Jane Bloomfield, Global Chief Marketing Officer at Landor & Fitch. Now, unfortunately, they couldn't be live, but of course we didn't want you to miss out on their opinions specific to our theme for the day, C-suite and marketing leadership. But above and beyond today's theme, they're also going to share some industry insight that I know you will get a lot of value from. So over to Arnaud and Jane.
Hi, brand innovators, and a huge warm welcome to Arnaud. Thank you for joining me here today. Arnaud, you and I are meeting just a few weeks ahead of 2021's United Nations Climate Change Conference, and it definitely feels like the clock is ticking louder than ever on environmental issues. And this could really well be the decisive decade for action and change. We know that consumers' biggest global environmental concerns focus on climate change. They focus on plastic waste. WPP data that we have has shown that over a third of consumers believe manufacturers and brands are responsible for leading the way for a more sustainable future. Now, it's well noted that fashion is one of the most polluting industries. And part of your own manifesto at Vestiaire Collective talks about the fact that clothing consumption is rising. It's set to rise by 63% by the year 2030. And in fact, today we're wearing our items 40% less than we did 10 years ago. So with that kind of background and context, can you start by telling me and everyone here stay a little bit more about Vestiaire Collective and the purpose that you have behind the brand?
Of course. Hello, Jane. Hello, everyone. So Vestiaire Collective was created 12 years ago. Initially, it's a French company, but we are global now. We operate in more than 80 countries. And fundamentally, at the core, it's a marketplace where people can buy and sell secondhand fashion. And then we have always focused on more the desirable fashion, right? So it goes from luxury, the typical brands, the Chanel, the Gucci, the Hermes, but obviously going a bit down. But we're focusing on clothing and bags, accessories, or watches, products that retain their value and retain because they are high quality, right? And what you were mentioning is so true, right? The fashion industry over the last couple of decades has moved much more towards what we call fast fashion. And fast fashion is very cheap, cheaply made in large quantities. And unfortunately, they don't last, right? They are, after a couple of times being worn, just because they are very cheap, also people just not wear them anymore and throw them away because they are not wearable, or because the next fashion craze came up and they are buying new things. And so at the beginning, really the idea was to say, hey, we have these really good products, very nice quality products, and instead of them staying in your closet and not being used, not being worn, and you buying new things because you don't like them anymore, they don't fit, let's give them a second life. Let's enable someone else to use them. And for us, it's even more important, as you just mentioned, because we need to decrease the impact on the planet of that industry. I think today, the fashion industry is about responsible for 10% of the CO2 emissions in the world, which is so high that it's kind of mind-boggling, right? We always talk about transportation, and but fashion is not the first thing that comes to mind. So that's one of the things we aspire to change at the Vestiaire Collective. Is not only you can find great deals and you can buy things that sometimes are vintage or unique, but really at the core of what we do, it's all about avoiding producing new stuff and making sure that the existing things can have a second life and be used again.
Yeah, which you feel that you were slightly ahead of the curve 12 years ago in starting this journey. You talk about the mission for the brand is around transforming the fashion industry for a more sustainable future, and that is partly done by this community. I think you talk about fashion activists to really help drive the change. Can you tell me a little bit more about who are these fashion activists? How do you engage them and bring them in to work with you in the brand?
Yes. So what's very interesting is if you think, if you look at younger generations, right? Like my kids, teenagers, I mean, obviously 20 years old also, but more and more of them, they don't want to buy new. And they don't want to buy new, I mean, sometimes because they want something more unique that they can make and be basically, stand alone and not just wear the last thing from Zara that everybody else is wearing. But there's also a growing concern about their impact on the environment and not being sustainable. And so I have friends, they're teenagers, they make a point to never buy anything new in terms of fashion, which I would argue that older people, our generation maybe, are not there yet. And sometimes actually buying new is seen as a quality aspect. And so that's one thing we really engage with, is we're trying to educate the community to say, this is how you can maintain and basically make sure that all the items you have, they retain their value and you can wear them longer. But also by authentifying, we authenticate all the products, we can ensure that you're getting the right thing. And so that really decreases the risk, because the first thing that comes to mind when you're thinking secondhand is, oh, is it going to be the right quality? Is the seller kind of making things a bit, looks better, but in real life, there is a spot somewhere, or it's damaged, or is it the real deal? Like, is it not a fake? And so at Vestiaire, we, from the beginning, we have taken that on by having everything shipped to a warehouse. And there we have people reviewing the quality of the item and making sure it's consistent with the description online, and then authenticating the products. And we have dedicated people that are experts that can tell you by just looking at the bag which year it was produced. They can look at things that you and I would not even realize are there, and tell apart a fake, even a really nicely done one from the real deal. And so I think that's very important, because if you talk about fashion, there's always a risk, right? People, when they buy, especially more expensive products, the first thinking is, oh, I want to go to the store because that's where I can ensure it's the right thing. But we offer the same level of quality, if you think.
Yeah,
and so
aspect of trust, as you've mentioned, is really important, but also the idea of education, as you rightly said, you know, sort of growing up, there was almost a little bit of a stigma attached to secondhand, or, you know, buying something that was already used, that I think you're right, generationally, you know, for some of us is quite hard to overcome. Whereas, yeah, I have two children as well, and you know, you sort of realize as well the consumption within a household can be quite enormous. So that education of saying actually buying something that has been used already is the right thing to do, and actually a better thing to do, I guess, is a big part of your communication then to potential customers and your customer base as well.
Exactly, right. And we try to make it very simple, right? So if you're a seller, typically you don't have time, you don't want to go to the post office to ship it. So we really looked at it as how we can make it as easy as possible. So you can list, and we will identify the product, and then you can basically list it faster. Then we will, once you sell, we'll basically, all you have to do is print the label, and everything is taken care of. So you don't, sometimes you, depending on the where it's being shipped, people can even pick it up from your home. So trying to reduce the friction, so more and more people think like that. And what's interesting is when you talk to especially younger generation, but more and more everyone, people start thinking of almost like renting an item for a certain time, right? Like if you buy a bag, I mean, bags are a very good example of that, because you want to change, right? And if you buy a Chanel bag, Hermes bag, Gucci, I mean, you name it, you end up with a relatively expensive item. And after a couple of years, if you're not wearing it anymore because your taste has evolved or you bought a new one, you don't want that to just stay in your closet. And what we're able to help people do is they realize the value that remains with that bag. And you now have people that buy something thinking, oh, I know I will be able to resell it for 90% of the value, or sometimes 100%, because some products really keep their value and go up potentially. So yeah, so and then it's a very different calculation, right? It's almost like an investment. People think, oh, I'm buying that more expensive watch or more expensive bag because I know it will retain its value.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting concept, right? Because I think when we look at sustainability, and certainly the work that I've seen over the years, we talk about this value action gap, that consumers know they should be doing something good or changing their behaviors, but actually it's quite difficult to do. So I love that idea about how you've kind of baked into your business model, and I'd love to hear more about this, that, you know, that you will make delivery as easily as possible. You're communicating that actually in some ways you're just renting this product for a period of time before you pass it on. I mean, that's clearly a deliberate strategy, right? You've thought about each aspect of the journey or the experience that consumers might have. And is that built then into your strategy, your business model, kind of, the whole way through? Is that something you'd say that you kind of thought about throughout the whole journey?
Yes. So very much so. I mean, it's a bit easier for us because sustainability is core to our brand, right? So it was already there from the get-go, and it's something that's really visible when you talk in the office. We have a chief sustainability officer, and she is there to always make sure we don't forget about that angle. I mean, not that we do, but sometimes you need a reminder, right? And so this is a core aspect of what we do, how we think about it. We have a warehouse in the north of France. We have a couple in the world, and in the north of France in Tourcoing, where it's all about being sustainable there also, right? In terms of using LEDs, having solar panels, and when we are working with the shipping companies, we try to use electric vehicles. So you basically want to drive it as much as possible in everything you do. It's not always easy, by the way, right? I mean, obviously, shipping things is not great for the planet on the face of it. But what's interesting is I think what makes it easier is that in many times and many ways, it helps the business. Like making good business decisions basically is aligned with being sustainable. And it's not always the case, but more often than you think, the two align. And I think that's when it's even obviously much easier to make the change.
I saw a really interesting quote last week. I think it was the chairman of Siemens, and he was talking about this argument around affordability. You know, that a lot of businesses say, well, it's going to put our costs up and our prices up. Whereas he felt that was really just an excuse for not making the necessary decisions or investments in the right processes. It sounds like you would probably agree with that sentiment from the sounds of kind of the way you're working internally as well.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think this is not an option, right? I mean, we all know any person who is reasonable will realize that we are driving at faster and faster speed into a wall. And there's only one planet, there's no second one. And I think we ought to all think of how we can do our little part, so together we improve the situation. And I think, unfortunately, yeah, it's easy to just say, oh, we'll do that later, or it's not our fault. But to me, it's everybody's responsibility, and we need to think at our level how you can contribute positively to the problem. And so I think as a business, you can have more impact, right? Because the individual is limited by definition. But if you think as a business, you can put the right incentives in place to have more impact. And so that's why I joined recently this year, actually 3 months ago. And that was one of the key things when I was looking for my next role, where it was about thinking, where can my contribution is going to have positive externalities versus just selling more things or growing the business, right? And don't get me wrong, we're still a business, we still have stakeholders and shareholders, and we still need to make to grow the business, but we want to do that by being responsible and by having positive externalities as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's interesting in something that is becoming increasingly common, where people are asking, you know, in interview processes, you know, what is the purpose, or what is your philosophy on? So 3 months, there you go. That was obviously a big part of your decision. Do you see that in the people that you work with at Vestiaire Collective, that there is a common kind of passion and desire to, you know, while, as you rightly say, we're all still working in businesses, we are in the business of growing those businesses and ultimately making money, but there is a common purpose that sits at the heart of it, and a desire to do a little bit more good.
Very much so. And I think you attract the people that react on that, right? And to me, that's the beauty of being at Vestiaire, is sustainability is part of our business model, and there are still things we need to do to improve it. But fundamentally, you as a result, you attract people that are for whom it's a critical issue. But yeah, I would say that every meeting, sustainability is part of the decision we're making, and it's at the core of the company.
And if you think about how, so we've just talked a little bit about how internally that manifests itself and how it's visible and tangible for people who work within the organization. How are you, thinking about this externally in terms of how you engage your audience? So obviously, WPP, we believe enormously in the power of creativity and creative transformation. Could you tell us a little bit about some either creative work or some ways that you're engaging your audiences that help bring that sustainability manifesto and that idea to life?
Yeah, so we try to do a lot of education, right, and use when people are on our site or engaging with us, use that opportunity to give them the right behaviors or tell them how to behave in the best way from a sustainability perspective, right? So we have created a campaign called Collective for Change. It's basically a monthly educational content. Sometimes it's a post, sometimes it's more of a video, and it's around sustainability and fashion. And it's we're working with influencers, organization like DOR is one we worked with recently, and the goal here is to showcase these people that are that have and really amplify their voice and show how you can help, right? Because as I said before, I think it's the first step is knowing there's an issue. The second step is knowing how you can do your part. So that's one area where we're trying to educate about secondhand, preferring quality products, giving a second life to your items, and beyond by partnering with these other entities. I mean, what's interesting is, and I'm a little bit new to fashion, so hopefully we won't have too many fashion experts that are going to point me wrong, but the way I look at the business of fashion is you really have two worlds that are kind of two camps, right? You have the fast fashion, which has gone from 2 seasons a year to 50 or even 100 micro seasons. And almost every week you have new collections coming up. And unfortunately, that means that the things are done pretty cheaply. If you have overstock, you don't do much with it because it's already out. So that's the fast fashion world, and we know all the extremes and the negative externalities it creates. And then you have what we're trying to push, which is a world of fashion where you buy less, but you buy better, and you wear more and you sell more. And so instead of buying 20 plus pieces of fashion every year, but only wearing them once or twice, you try to buy less things, you try to wear them more, and you realize that if you're not wearing something, it's like Marie Kondo, right? You probably know her.
Who doesn't? Right?
And to me, this is exactly right? Having stuff is not what makes you happy. And actually, when you say goodbye to things, and especially if you're not throwing them away, but you're giving them a second life, I think that makes you actually feel better. You feel like you're not weighed down by all your possessions and your stuff.
I love that idea of Marie Kondo, where you have to look at something and ask, does it bring you joy? I think that's a really great idea, actually, when you think about what items you might want to pass on. You touched on the idea of fast fashion there, and a lot of those brands are obviously talking about sustainability and their credentials in that area, and sometimes it can feel as a consumer that everybody is talking or saying the same thing. So how do you think fashion brands can really win today and reap the benefits of genuine sustainability? I mean, there is a question of how true some of the claims are, but what do you think is most important for fashion brands to win today?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing which is interesting is it's to realize that consumers demand sustainability. And yes, maybe not everyone, but this is the growing, it's not even a trend, it's the underlying massive change that we're seing. We were talking earlier about the younger generations. but I think it's moving up into every trench, every type of people. I would argue that Asia is a little bit behind, but definitely in Europe and the US, you see that trend very, very dramatically, where consumers will not accept that you're not doing something about sustainability. It's not part of how you think, how you operate. And once you have understood that fact, as a company, you need to take that into account. And what you see, and you alluded to that, is what people call greenwashing, right? Where you're doing something just because you think you have to, because people are asking about it, but it's not core to who you are. And sometimes it's kind of a facade, right? Yes, it's great to plant some trees somewhere or do some carbon offset, but that's not really changing what you do at the core. And so for me, my message to fashion brands out there would be, you need to really think about your processes of how you operate and make fundamental changes, because the reality is consumers are much more educated than they used to. They have access through the internet, social media, etc., to information. And if you do greenwashing, it's going to blow up in your face at some point, right? We all know about examples. You cannot not be genuine. So the first advice is really realize that this is not going away and actually accelerating. Realize that just doing some high-level thing that are not really genuinely changing what you're doing is going to blow back in your face, because people are going to point to contradictions. And then really put that at the core of what you do. And again, it's about taking that into account, right? And it's not going to be instantaneous. You cannot do that in one day. It's going to be a process. But at least if you are willingly thinking about it, that's how you start. And I think then your customers will accept that. They will realize that at least you're doing your part, and it's not perfect yet, but you're making progress.
So the idea of being open and transparent, in fact,
very much
throughout the whole process, and you know, the idea of keeping customer updated on that progress, I think probably is also quite important as well.
Yeah, I mean, if a brand ignores sustainability, they will start losing market share, because more and more people are not going to accept or be. It's almost like a brand thing, right? They don't want to be associated with a brand that is doing that. And so I think it's a risk for a brand not to think about sustainability, especially in fashion, as we said, right? 10% of the global emissions of CO2 are linked to that industry. You don't want to be associated with the fast fashion world. And even in the fast fashion world, you want to think how you can improve things, so at least you can answer the question.
Okay. If we sort of start to finish up, because I think we could sit here and talk all day, but if I'm going to draw us to a close and finish with a couple of questions. I talked at the beginning about this is a decisive decade in terms of the global environment. I mean, you're 3 months in to your role. Do you have a view about where you personally would like the fashion industry to be in 10 years time, and how you might like it to look?
Yeah, I mean, for me, fashion is still about being desirable, right? So I think sometimes people equate sustainable and desirable, or they oppose them. The future of fashion for me is desirable and sustainable. It's realizing that secondhand doesn't have to mean second quality and lower than the new, and it's actually showing that you can be sustainable and be desirable at the same time. And as I said before, right, if you have that mantra and more people are pushing it, buy less, buy better, wear more, sell more, you will get fashion on the right path. And I'm not saying we should not buy new things, right? I mean, there's still a place for new things, but what you don't want is buy new things that are not going to be fully utilized. because then it's a waste.
So you talked about your mission and the purpose of the brand. Now, one of the missions of the brand is about creating a circular fashion economy and ecosystem. I think you talk about it. And you've talked a bit about collaboration with influencers, but another way that I think is really interesting that I've spotted that you're doing is partnering with brands and activist groups. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your work with brands like Alexander McQueen, with Mulberry, for example. Can you tell me a little bit more about that as well?
Yes. So if you think of the traditional model in fashion, it's very linear, right? It's you sell something and then that's it. There is no circularity. And circularity here means that you can sell things multiple times and they can be then used multiple times. And we obviously have an expertise in that. And so in the last couple of years, we've seen brands reaching out to see how they can leverage that platform and start creating circularity in their world. And we're more than happy, obviously, to share that expertise because this is totally aligned with our mission. So brands like, Alexander McQueen, My Teresa is another example. They basically what they do is they reach out to their customer base and say, hey, if you have items, usually from their brand, or it could be multiple brands from My Teresa, and you are not using them anymore, we'll buy them back from you. And so then customers, there are multiple ways to do that. They can go to a store or they can do that online. They bring back the pieces they don't use. They get a price. What's interesting is these brands usually give you a better pricing because it's in the form of a coupon that then you can use to buy, again, new things. And then in the back end, we collect all of that. We list them and we make sure they are resold and they can go in and have a second life. And so for me, that's a very interesting trend. We have many more in the works. More and more brands are interested to do that because they, as we said before, right, they want to do the right thing, but also it's directly helping them because they connect with their customers and they keep them inside of their house.
And I love some of the language, you know, that gets used around this as well, this idea of circular. It's a very simple concept, I think, for most of us to grasp, and this idea of pre-loved, that some brands, I think Mulberry talk about that as well, which certainly has a warmth and more engagement to things like secondhand, or, you know, perhaps some of the phrases that I was more familiar with as a child. And what it sounds to me is that you mentioned these brands are approaching you and your organization. So there's an element of an understanding that you are at the forefront and that you're pushing this. And something that I know you've recently been awarded is this first B Corp fashion resale platform. Now, I have to admit, I'm not entirely familiar with that concept. Can you tell us all a little bit, what does that mean? It sounds very exciting and congratulations. But what does it mean?
Yes, so yes, we just got the B Corp certification, I think 6 weeks ago. And we were the first fashion resale platform to get it. B Corp is a framework on social and environmental topics, right? So it's an independent organization and they have created that worldwide recognized certification. And it's a very long process. It typically takes 3 years. The team here was very proud that we did it in one. Not that it's a competition, but yeah, faster than usual. And what happens is they audit all the processes in the company, looking at social aspects, sustainability, environment, and you get points. And based on that, if you get enough points, you're getting the certification. So it's a pretty big commitment in terms of time. It means that all your processes have to be there. So it's beyond sustainability itself. But what's interesting is you then join a community of purpose-driven companies, right? You can think of Patagonia as one of the forefront of that trend. And these companies that do business for good, then you can share best practices with them. So we're really proud of being there. It shows, I think, the commitment of Vestia Collective to want to do the right thing. And by the way, it's a big commitment because I think every 3 years you're getting reevaluated, and you can lose a certification if things have improved and not improved or changed for the worse, or just usually when businesses grow, things may not be as good as when they were small. So yeah, I'm very proud of that. I think I would encourage people who are committed to sustainability and ESGs, right? All the governance, social, environment aspects to at least consider it. But it's a big investment. Yeah.
I love it when you talked about that idea of best practice as well, that you can kind of tap somebody else on the shoulder and say, how did you do that? And I feel that that's probably one of the big themes that you've talked about today, is this idea of collaboration and all of us being in this together, you know, this circular economy, we all have to feed back in. So it's a great kind of I guess idea that you can go to a Patagonia and go, tell me what, you know, your journey was, and they will share best practice. So yes, hopefully if anybody watching would like some tips and some ideas, then you'd be very happy to take some questions after the fact, because as we said at the very beginning, we're not here live today. So if people do have any questions, then hopefully you'd be very happy to offer some more advice and tips moving forward.
Yes, definitely. Don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn, or I can share my email. And yeah, fundamentally, I think we are all in it together, right? There's only one planet, as I said earlier, and very happy to help people who are trying to figure out how to improve things on their end.
Okay. And I think that's probably a great place then for us to close today. Thank you so much for joining me, Arnaud, and everyone here at Brand Innovators. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Jane. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Arnaud and Jane. Really, really fantastic conversation. I personally loved hearing about the Vestiaire collective mission just to transform the fashion industry as a whole. And it's an amazing example of an industry coming together. And I think importantly, an industry being led by a younger generation, which we heard about sort of early on in the discussion, and a younger generation that are focused on sustainability and fueled by passion, which I think is a great place from which to start the education process. I think also to hear how central sustainability is to the Vestiaire Collective business. And the fact that you, Arnaud, never let that out of your sight, I think it's a bold example of understanding where you are now as a company and where you want to go moving forward, and carrying that level of authenticity with you, you know, being very present in terms of brand values, and also the ability to attract talent aligned to your principles. Again, something I know that all of us on the call would agree to, you know, when we're looking at talent that we want to come into our organizations, but importantly, that we have that reciprocal value piece. So again, thank you so much to Arnaud and Jane. Really, really great conversation. Today is flying by, but hold on with us and sit tight, because we have Duncan Bird joining us. Duncan is the Vice President of Brand and Digital at Fiverr, responsible for creating game-changing ideas and strategies that use technology to tell stories worth knowing. In his 30-year career, Brian has worked at agencies including BBH, BBDO, and Anomaly, where he's worked on such brands as Adidas, Budweiser, Coca-Cola, Nike, Sephora, T-Mobile, and the New York Yankees. He's also served as the VP of Marketing at Sony Music, where he created partnerships and events with brands, including Unilever and Motorola, working alongside such artists as Bruce Springsteen, Outkast, and Susan Boyle. Duncan has been named one of the top 10 people in advertising by The Independent and appeared on Campaign Magazine's Marketing A-List. Duncan, it is amazing to have you here today, and that really is quite an impressive run through of people that you've worked with. Moderating our session today, we have Juliana Colley. Juliana is Director, Partner, Marketing and Enablement for WPP. She joined the WPP business in 2013 and has since held several roles across the group, both within agencies and within central teams in London and New York. In her current role, Juliana is responsible for co-marketing strategy with WPP's major partners. And additionally, she oversees the delivery of WPP's Partner Enablement Program, ensuring that teams across the entire organization have access to the best-in-class training across the newest technology, disciplines, and capabilities. So welcome to the stage, Duncan and Juliana.
Thank you for the introduction, Nicola. We're thrilled to be here. I had all sorts of issues with my virtual background, which is a testament to my ability to navigate technology. So you've got the brick wall, unfortunately. Sorry, Duncan. How are you today? In a rainy New York, I'm guessing.
It's a little bit rainy here, and I'm a little flattered by that introduction. I didn't realize I'd done so many things.
Many, many things. Which kind of brings me to my first question. I was going to ask, give me a little bit of a background of your career to date. I know it's kind of spawned a number of different agencies, Sony Music, you've had a very kind of varied experience. So I'd love to hear about your story of how you ended up at Fiverr and a little bit of how it's different to kind of past experiences to date.
Sure. So yeah, most of my early part of my career was in advertising agencies in the UK. Which was terrific, and I learned a huge amount. I took a slight deviation to one of my personal passions, which is music, worked at Sony Music, which took me to, technically, I would say, the client side, although anyone who's ever worked with a music company will know it's not like a regular client, it's rock and roll. So that was super interesting, and it just taught me a different set of skills really to working in an agency, where in an agency, you know a little bit about a lot of things. You become a bit of an expert in quite a few things, but not across the whole piece, not across the whole marketing mix. And so when this opportunity at Fiverr came in front of me, it reminded me of the opportunity at Sony was to kind of work across stuff, but within rock and roll. And here with Fiverr was an opportunity to do something which is revolutionizing something. And I'm a big fan of revolutions, and changing how the world works together is a pretty audacious mission. And the team of people at Fiverr who talked to me and attracted me are super intelligent, and it was an opportunity I just couldn't turn down.
Fair enough. And the brand, you know, looking at the brand, it's gone through a significant evolution in and of itself. You know, from the start and the $5 services genesis of brand campaigns. I heard originally that you guys didn't spend a cent on marketing in your first 3 years. Correct me, could have been completely wrong there, but it's a huge change and evolution from that early positioning to now, with your first Super Bowl commercial in February and a new brand campaign, I believe, around the corner. I'd love to hear about like how you've seen the brand evolve in this space of time, and some of the challenges along the way, particularly I'm sure in the last 18 months as many brands have struggled to adapt messaging to the current environment.
Yeah, I mean, our brand has evolved tremendously over the last couple of years, and notably during the pandemic, we started out on a process to look at rebranding, evolving our brand image. I was actually over in London right before the lockdown, looking at different partners to work with, and we began that process before the lockdown. During the lockdown, yeah, we have transformed fundamentally. We did a campaign helping businesses go from the offline world to the online world, and we focused on some businesses in the Nashville area, and we turned that into our first real campaign, experimenting with the use of television, initially in North America, but then in Europe and in Australia, and we saw some fantastic results from that. We launched that at the same time as we took a look at our brand. We call it really more of a brand evolution than a rebrand. And we wanted to hold on to the essence of the original Fiverr brand, but show how the company has matured over the time that we went from our origins to what we are now, which is a brand that's revolutionizing work across the world. So we created a new logo, we broadened our color palette, we have a bold two typeface typographic system, and the new visual identity really celebrates creativity, energy, and determination of our entire Fiverr community. And true to form, we placed our community right at the heart of both the new ad campaign and embedded the imagery to support our brand evolution. So those were two tremendously exciting things for us to do during a lockdown. And then we decided to up the ante. We talked about doing a Super Bowl ad before, and it seemed like the right time to do it. And as a company that really is there to energize and help and assist any business to build their business, their brand, their dreams, whatever that happens to be, that's our core purpose. And we stumbled across the Four Seasons Total Landscaping business, who were the perfect business story for us, empowering a female-owned business who was pivoting because of something that had happened to them completely outside of their control. And if I dare give them a plug, there is a documentary about to be aired next week at the celebration of the infamous press conference. There's a documentary looking at how that happened and how it affected their business. And then we rang up and said, would you be in our Super Bowl commercial? And for anyone who hasn't seen the Super Bowl commercial, it's essentially a look behind what happened to their business, how they transformed, and how a company like Fiverr helped them. And it really was a celebration, albeit slightly tongue-in-cheek, of the entrepreneurial spirit and the fact that it's been a transformational year for so many businesses. And it was our way of really supporting that, and to be able to do that in the Super Bowl and not just do it as a ad, it was a complete campaign, 360 campaign, was quite something. And we called the spot Opportunity Knocks, which felt appropriate. And rather than go the route of employing a celebrity, we made Marie Saravo our celebrity.
Her own celebrity. I love that story. I didn't know the full background to the campaign. Do you know what platform the documentary is airing on for anyone that wants
to? It is airing on NBC Peacock and on MSNBC.
To keep up with my subscription streaming services these days. And I think that's an interesting piece that you touched on with Fiverr's genesis and the way in which there's been a bit of a reevaluation for your positioning in the last year, but also in the way in which we approach work. And I hate to bring up the Great Resignation, we've all kind of probably sick of it at this point in time, but there has been a notable change in the way in which people interact with employers. And I think that comes down to this need for flexibility. We've all had a taste of flexibility in the last year and a half, call it, the flexible working hours, working from home. But I think missing from that narrative around resignation is this kind of real empowerment amongst kind of workers and the freelance population, which Fiverr's always understood. So, no better time for your brand to be speaking at this moment in time. How have you seen the trend play out internally? And how do you, from a messaging standpoint, I don't want to say capitalize upon the opportunity, but kind of evolve your comms accordingly?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it. We're not trying to capitalize on things. I think all that's happened is during this extraordinary period of imposed isolation, I guess, and the way that people have had to work, it's made a lot of people question what they're doing. I was reading an article the other day from my old boss, Sir John Hegarty, who was saying that we as a group, we're always looking at obsessing about three things: future, speed, and access. And he talks about your own black book becomes a very limiting way of trying to find the right person. And I think what we're seeing is that people are viewing freelancing as something that is actually incredibly intriguing, incredibly helpful, and a way to reevaluate how people see their careers. So as a digital platform, Fiverr provides lots of opportunities for anyone to expand their skill set. You can start a side hustle. or pursue freelance work full time. And what this kind of, I guess, for want of a better phrase, great resignation has shown is that people want more flexibility and they want autonomy over their careers. And people are tired of the 9-to-5 concept. It's no longer the way that people want to work. And so we're unique in the fact that all the work done through our platform, it's entirely project-based. So freelancers aren't tied to hours. They're not tied to specific projects or when they want to work or the price that they want to charge, which is a common misconception. And so during the pandemic, we've thought very hard about what are the tools that might help people. Firstly, we launched Fiverr Business, which is designed really for teams and departments to collaborate with each other and manage products with freelance talent. And with Fiverr Business, managers of teams have got the ability to collaborate with each other. So if you've got a multi-person team and you're in a small to medium-sized business, you can all work together on the project and access exactly what's happening. On the seller side, we launched a tool called Subscriptions, which is a new feature that allows freelancers on Fiverr the opportunity to establish a more long-term relationship with customers. So they might know a little bit better what revenue they might see coming in from their projects, and expand the products and offerings and services to appeal to sort of larger businesses and agencies and corporate teams. So I think you had a great phrase, I think, in the way you asked the question, which is not about capitalizing, but it's about helping. Before the pandemic, we saw this, and we do tons of research, and we can see that there are increasingly large numbers of people who want to have more flexibility in their work, who want to make the decisions for themselves. And our platform is there to really help and to enable. And it's kind of really, it's a slightly corny phrase, the future of work, but it really is the future of work, which is a different way of thinking about how you might go about planning your own career in a way that isn't just tied to one organization or one approach.
Yeah, certainly. How have you seen working environments change internally at Fiverr? Curiously, are you in the office at the moment? Are you hybrid, working from home still?
Yeah, we're hybrid. We see benefits with both the working from home and the in-person. To do a Super Bowl ad remotely is something I didn't think I would experience. There were some advantages. You know, we were shooting in Mexico City, and the technology that we had allowed us to look right down the lens and be able to talk to the director as it was happening. So in a way, a bit like our platform, we're bringing that experience through technology really close. We do believe that there's, you know, a lot of advantages to in-person, but there's some great advantages to working from home. So yeah, we're following a hybrid approach right now. And I think, like most businesses, what we're trying to do is learn what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages. There's no real right way. We're all discovering the new ways of working.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that the kind of the client set that you guys work, obviously it's a two-sided platform, but from the corporate standpoint, it's expanding. So, you know, Genesis, small to medium-sized businesses, Fiverr work with a lot. Now that's expanding to kind of larger corporations, and you know, coming from a particularly large corporation in WPP, how have you seen kind of that evolve in the process and working with those kind of larger customer sets that might not be as kind of used to working with freelance talent on such a broad scale enterprise level?
Yeah, I think one of the fascinating things, and going back to your first question, one of the things that attracted me to this role is that we aren't limited to one specific audience, and we're constantly evolving to meet the needs of businesses from a broad range of sizes and a broad range of freelance skills. So I'm guessing this conference center of gravity is in creativity, but we have over 500 digital services, and they're not all about creativity. Some of them are completely outside of creativity. So we have a gigantic range of the types of businesses and the types of services that we provide. We kind of think of ourselves as the everything store for digital services. A bit like Amazon is the everything store for products, we are the everything store for services, so not just creative services. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we thought about our messaging, and we thought about excluding empathy and support for freelance and business community, and we shifted our messaging. With that came a shift in our marketing strategy. We shifted from, you know, out of home tactics to being more digital, investing in podcasts and pivoting. And our messaging, we're constantly trying to make tweaks to understand the current climate And, we're super excited that we can scale up and we can scale down, but we're trying to make our messaging inclusive for all sizes of businesses. And when it comes to the much bigger businesses, our data shows us that many of the top big companies in the world are using Fiverr, and they're using Fiverr, I imagine, as a blend to, as John Hegarty was talking about with your black book. Your black book can only take you so far.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is removed place and even time as an issue in thinking about how you can get talent. I mean, it's sounding a bit like quantum physics now, but it really is wherever you want in the world, whenever you want, you can access talent. And having spent much of my career panicking to try and get a new business pitch, panicking that nobody's checked the deck, have we got the right slides, do we know what we're saying, is it too long, that you never really have enough hands. And then meantime, your competitors are stealing your existing clients because you're taking all of your talent away from the person that you're trying to impress tomorrow, who you desperately want to work with, Coca-Cola, Nike, whoever it is.
I'm sure a number of people watching will empathize with that struggle. And I think, like, speaking to so many different types of businesses, I know you've spoken about kind of the mass campaigns that you've invested in, and the Super Bowl being one of them. I would also imagine that there's an element of personalization, kind of like the other side of your comms that's needed. How do you approach that kind of mix from a comm strategy, straddling the bigger brand messaging from the personalization necessary to target freelancers across 500 different categories, small businesses and large corps?
We're an extremely data-driven company, and we use performance marketing extensively. And so through our use of performance marketing, we've become very, very good at being able to target and test and constantly A/B test messages against different target audiences, against different offerings. And obviously we have so many offerings that if we tried to do everything, then nothing would be important. So we do have to have focus. We know that certain aspects of our offering generate more of a kind of a click through and an experimentation with our platform. And we know that other messaging is much more at the top of the funnel, which is about awareness and consideration and brand image. So we're constantly testing up and down that funnel and personalizing those messages, personalizing them not just within the type of category and the type of media, but in the type of country. So for example, the messaging we target in Germany is quite different to the messaging that works really well in Australia. And there are macro factors that affect that, which are sort of beyond just our brand and marketing strategy, but are cultural, about how people in those countries feel about freelance, how they feel about using outside organizations. And there's, it's fascinating seeing the different results, and there are patterns that emerge, which you can apply from one country to another, and then from one category to another. So it's keeping that balance of the big picture of awareness and consideration, and then the conversion piece, and thinking about how we target and who we target, and always keeping in the back of our mind that our purpose is to help everyone build their business brand or dream. And so it's not so much about capitalizing, but enabling and allowing people to experience something that, a bit like when you first experience Amazon, it really can liberate your thinking about ways in which you can access services that you need.
I love that shift from kind of empowering. I think that's really interesting from a talent perspective. And look, I think a lot of brands are in a similar situation where that kind of always on messaging and the testing piece is so critical, but particularly hard in your case when you're across 160 markets and have many different content verticals as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging, but it's super exciting because
it's true
to see a dashboard of why is this working here and why isn't it working there? What if we try it the other way around? You are constantly learning. And I think that one of the great things of a company like ours is it attracts people who have extremely curious and innovative minds, rather than here's how marketing works, do this, done, now what?
But is there ever a playbook to how marketing works?
Is there ever
that's the interesting part of our jobs, is that no 2 days are the same.
I think years ago there was more of a playbook than there is now. I think the old days of, TV, out of home radio and press and magazines, I think is just so different to where we're at now. And some people find it liberating. I certainly do. It's super exciting. Other people complain that it was better in the good old days.
Less to think about, less to worry about. How many internally do you have in your marketing department at Fiverr, out of interest?
How many do we have? We have enough.
Enough.
We have lots of people, lots of smart brains. But I feel like everyone in our company, and I mean everyone, is in some way a marketing expert, because we approach it with a very open mindset of, you don't just have to have the job title to be good at marketing. So we have some really smart people who are constantly coming up with ideas from things like hackathons, which can be applied to marketing. They might just use slightly different language to someone who's trained in marketing. So I kind of feel everybody in the company is in marketing. And I know that that might be to agency people who, a creative idea can come from anywhere. Yeah, right. In a company like ours, it really is throughout the organization.
No, I completely agree with that. Someone once said to me, like, to succeed in this industry, you need to be interested and interesting and always have a curious mind. And it sounds like that's culturally something that you guys embrace at Fiverr.
Yeah, it's very much embraced at our company and encouraged. And it's amazing the results that you can see from the most unexpected sources. We treat everybody with the same level of respect. It isn't about job titles and it isn't about seniority. It's about ideas and capability.
How do you, as a fairly broad organization in that sense, and straddling so many markets, share kind of great work or share ideas and innovations internally? I know that's something that particularly is, WPP is so big. That's a challenge that we have sometimes, is like, we do great work, but it's getting the word out internally is sometimes the hardest part.
So we have regular town halls, and those town halls are for every aspect of our company. So not just marketing people, it could be HR, it could be product innovation, it could be a vertical manager, it could be anything. And then we do roundtables where we're listening to people at all levels in the company talk about challenges and ideas, and constantly just encouraging people to come forward with ideas and share those ideas. So we use a lot of technology tools internally, things like Slack. I think we're slightly addicted to WhatsApp. There's a constant chatter of stuff, from the big official stuff to the smaller stuff. So right before this call, I was on Slack, on WhatsApp, on lots of different things, chatting about stuff. We're launching a new campaign tomorrow. So we had a big town hall yesterday, which was fun.
And I'm sure a lot of that probably stems back to the fact of Israeli company. Israel's known for its tech sector. And you mentioned to me when we spoke earlier that there's a really strong tech background and ethos at Fiverr that plays into that culture of experimentation and testing. How does that play out, both internally, which you touched on, but how does it influence your messaging and comms as a brand?
Yeah, I think it's such a breath of fresh air that if you've ever worked with an Israeli tech company, you know that the speed with which we think and implement things is quite unlike most companies. And the passion of the kind of Israeli startup nation, this idea of innovation is so important, and wanting to really think of new ways of doing things, regardless of your job title, regardless of your experience, and sharing those ideas, and most importantly, acting on them. And I think that from my experience in the UK, and I don't want to bash the UK because I'm from there, or bash the US because I live here, but I think that the Israeli culture of actually completing it and getting shit done is second to none. So you've got this determination in terms of being innovative, and a determination to complete that loop, not just talk about it. So that can surface itself in terms of products, features, tools, support for our audience, expanding our messaging further. And our philosophy is that great ideas come from anywhere, which inspires curiosity and drives engagement. It's fascinating.
Is you big office in Israel still?
We have offices all over the world. We have our HQ is in Tel Aviv, but we have offices in Kiev, we have offices in Serbia, offices all over North America, in Germany, in the UK, Australia. But yeah, our office in Tel Aviv, which pre-pandemic I used to visit a lot, is a hub of really exciting activity, and not just our office, but Tel Aviv in itself. There really is an amazing culture. Like our head of design, Nadav, also is a lecturer in design in Tel Aviv. So as you walk around Tel Aviv, half the people are running up and saying hi. So it's a much smaller group than, you know, a London or a New York type experience. But the blend of that with people in all those countries that I mentioned makes it super fascinating. And, you know, Israel is very much a hub for technology and innovation. So many incredible startups originating there. And ultimately, it leads into how we approach creative innovation in Fiverr. In the brand world, we strive to be bold and brave in everything we do. And anyone on the team can share ideas, brainstorm, collaborate with amazing content. And it shows in the work that we do. Look at our Super Bowl ad. It was a very brave, very risky thing to do. Most other brands who were first-time Super Bowl advertisers were going the celebrity route, which I'm so glad we didn't.
And far less not doing it for the first time in the middle of a pandemic where messaging and striking the right chord is hard enough in and of itself. I'd love to visit Tel Aviv. I'm much looking forward to, I think signs of travel are starting to reopen. I've been stuck in the US for the last year, so looking forward to getting back on a plane sometime soon. And speaking of kind of what's coming soon, you alluded to this earlier, but there may be a campaign imminent for Fiverr. What's coming next, both in terms of comms and then for Fiverr and for you, Duncan?
So you're right, we are launching a new 360 campaign tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I can't share too much detail on that here. I can share that it's bold and it illustrates the opportunities and professional services available on our platform for anyone with a business idea. And I think we might be able to play a teaser if you are wanting to.
So, here we go. Ooh, very exciting. So when is that tomorrow? Tomorrow at 8 a.m.
8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time going live. We've been pushing the teaser message for the last couple of days on our social channels and paid channels, and we're getting a lot of engagement around it, particularly on LinkedIn and on Instagram and also on Facebook. And yeah, I don't want to reveal any more than the tease.
We will stay tuned tomorrow. Well, I think that's almost all of our questions. Is there anything else that you'd wanted to touch on, Duncan, that we missed?
No, I think you've covered. I think you've covered everything. I got some additional questions which we didn't cover about if you had to work in any other company, who would it be?
Quick fire questions. Let's do it. I was going to see if we have any in the chat, but I think feel free everyone to throw your questions in the chat and we can come to them in a couple of minutes. But while we wait, let's go through these quick fire questions. I love it. So if you had to work at any other company, who, where, and why?
Who, where, and why? It would be my own record store, and it would be in New York City. And why? Because I'm a obsessive record collector, and I've worked in record stores. I've never owned one, and I just feel slightly weirdly that at this point in my life, everybody seems to be into records, and I've been collecting them since I was about 5 years old. And I'd love to have a record store. It couldn't be any more different from working at a tech company. It's as analog as you get.
probably do very well at the moment. I always walk past one in Soho on Thompson, I want to say. It's Thompson or Sullivan.
I know the one, yeah.
Yeah,
round. Generation Records.
Yeah, Generation Records, exactly. It's round, which is nice to see. So similarly, New York or London? I know you've lived across
New York. I've lived 23 or 24 years in London. I've been 14 years here. I mean, it's just, there's no comparison. I mean, everybody here wants to be in London, and most people in London want to be here. Having been in both, there's so much less of a frowny face, and people getting all upset. And I think that New York, whilst it's in the United States, it's very different to the rest of the United States, as London is different to the rest of England, or the UK, sorry. And yeah, I prefer it. It's just, for me, you get 4 seasons, or you used to get 4 seasons.
Now it's just summer and winter.
Now it's just summer and winter, yeah.
Oppressive summer and oppressive winter. But, I've lived across both as well. And similarly, today is a very...
Yeah, it feels like London.
...day in New York. So last series you watched?
The last series I watched, TV.
Yeah.
The last thing I watched was The Maid on Netflix, which I thought was terrific. I watched it in part not because it's you know, a very heartfelt, somewhat disturbing true story. My brother moved to Seattle and lives on Bainbridge Island, which is where it's set. Fisher Island is Bainbridge Island, and Port Townsend is our favourite town. So I watched it for all the wrong reasons, and then got completely engrossed in it. And I don't think I've sobbed so much watching a TV programme in my life.
I mean, not the reason that I'm going to have to tune in, but sounds like a good one.
It's certainly addictive.
Final question, Duncan. We again spoke about this a little bit earlier. What's some advice that you'd give your younger self in terms of whether it be kind of career development or just general life advice, given the interesting career that you've had in life?
Super easy. Anyone who knew me when I was younger, I would say 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in proportion that you were given them.
I can't think of a better way to end this. Duncan, it's been a true pleasure. Thank you. I'm eagerly awaiting tomorrow's big launch and hope everyone that's tuning in has a look. For anyone that's trying to reach out, where should they contact you, follow you? LinkedIn, any social?
LinkedIn, yeah. LinkedIn's easiest.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And thank you to the team at Brand Innovators for today. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for your excellent questions, and enjoy the rest of your slightly wet day.
Thanks, Duncan. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Okay, amazing. Thank you to Duncan and Juliana. I have to say there that yes, I'm guilty of now starting to want to own records. I'm definitely going to watch The Maid and use the two ears and 1 mouth. So some good sage advice there at the end. But Duncan, again, thank you. I think it's clear that at Fiverr you celebrate creativity and curiosity, but with energy, and specifically, I think something that resonated for me, Duncan, was that you mentioned the fact that culturally in the Fiverr business, you don't just have to have the job to be good at marketing. Everyone can be good at marketing. And essentially that's where great ideas come from. The use of hackathons to surface ideation, encouraging chatter every day about what's going on in the Fiverr business is amazing. But I think also the excitement and opportunity of working across 160 markets, so that ongoing A/B testing and learning from a unique exposure means that you really can live in a philosophy of inspiration, you know, and making sure that you and your people are engaged every day. So thank you so much for that. And as we move on, last but by no means least, I would like to introduce Denise Sakuma to the stage. Denise is the Vice President of Brands, Marketing and Communications and Merchandising at the Lycra Company. And in this role is charged with increasing the value of the Lycra Company's portfolio of iconic brands, including Lycra, Coolmax and Thermalite brands. With years of experience in building brands, Denise leads the global brand marketing communication capabilities in retail, merchandising, new product commercialization, sustainability, public relations, e-commerce, creative, and social media. We're joined by Michelle Whelan, CEO, VML Y&R Commerce UK, who's going to be moderating the final session of the day for us. So welcome to the stage, Denise and Michelle. Hi, Denise. Do we have Michelle?
Well, I would hope
so. Okay, cool. Sorry, she's just going to join us in 1 second.
No problem. Here.
So if I can just ask you while we hold, I think you've been on watching some of the sessions today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Highlights, and sort of key takeouts that you've had so far.
Well, I am actually very, happy to have shared all this moment with all of you, because we do have very many common subjects and topics that goes into innovation, sustainability, talent, pandemic, and so on. So, well, yeah. I guess it's because just a reflection that we live in the same world. So really, like successful companies are looking into the areas that are of importance to consumers and therefore the value chain that they serve. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure this year has been, well, the last 18 months has been an interesting one for you in your role, and I would imagine you, Michelle, will be talking about that. But are there any sort of key areas that you've really been able to learn from over the last 18 months when it comes to talent, all the brand, sustainability, and again, some of the key areas we touched on?
We are going to touch base on this, but I think that to the fact that we do have a brand, that's when, on a situation like a pandemic, that's when, it makes all the difference of being a value-added business. And Procter and Gamble spoke about value adding. If you're not value adding to your customer or to a consumer, there is no point of being. So that's where makes the difference of you being a premium business, somebody that's relevant to your customers versus being a commodity. And in a situation like the pandemic, it just showed how much customers and consumers are looking for differentiated services, convenience, innovation, long-lasting products, value for money, basically, good value for money.
Yeah, great. And again, that would involve staying quite true to your brand principles. And I think we heard about it from P&G earlier on, making sure that you can sort of ride out a longer period of time to really prove out that value piece to the consumer.
All the presentations were quite interesting, to be honest.
For sure. Hi, Michelle.
Hello. How is everyone?
Hi. Very, very well. So look, as I said, I was just having a very quick chat to Denise, but I'm going to hand over to you guys and I'll come back after your session.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I guess we'll kick off. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I had a few challenges with Wi-Fi, which is to be expected, and I'm in the office. I'm not even at home today. So first of all, let me just start by saying I'm hugely excited to be here today and to welcome Denise to the virtual stage. Denise is a hugely experienced marketeer, and we are, I'm sure, going to have a wonderful conversation between us. We encourage everyone who's joining us to please be part of the conversation. The chat is open and we'll be taking questions throughout the session. So the core themes that we're going to cover off in our conversation are around innovation, sustainability, and commerce. And we've seen tremendous growth and change over the last 18 months across these three areas. And in our discussion, we'll examine the impact that those three areas have had on the Lycra company. But first of all, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you all to Denise. As I said, Denise is a hugely experienced marketeer and is doing some wonderful things at the Lycra company. She's charged with increasing the value of the Lycra company's portfolio of iconic brands, including the Lycra, Coolmax, and Thermalite, brands that I'm sure we're all very familiar with, and I, for one, am a huge fan. Denise leads the global brand marketing communication capabilities across retail merchandising, new product commercialization, sustainability, public relations, e-commerce, creative, and social media. And not only that, but Denise also is responsible for driving digital transformation, including the launch of new websites and innovation digital tools. A huge remit and a huge amount of responsibility. Denise has worked at DuPont, Invista, and the Lycra company in various roles, from sales and marketing to branding and communications. She was responsible for licensing the Lycra brand into other categories, including the beauty industry, nonetheless. Denise has a huge global footprint in her experience. She has worked in different company offices, including the US, Switzerland, and Brazil, and is currently based in Barcelona in Spain. As you can imagine, to have a role like this with this level of experience, Denise has a master's degree in business administration from the University of Michigan, and also a bachelor's degree in business management from the Sao Paulo School of Business Administration, and also is hugely technically experienced and has several certificates across textiles, fashion, and also marketing. So Denise, let me just now say welcome. I'm really happy to be here with you today, and I'm going to kick off by just asking you to tell us a little bit about the Lycra company and huge role that you have and the portfolio of brands that you lead.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm very happy with this warm welcome, quite extensive on the curriculum. It's like, it looked like, you know, like really like a short time frame on this career, because I just have the passion and love for what I do. And I just want to take the opportunity to actually thank the brand innovators, the organizers, the audience that are sitting here. And really, this is a special moment for me, because it's not that we are sharing this virtual space, but we are sharing this common love and interest for branding and marketing. So I hope that under this 30 minutes, we will be sharing an interesting story about the Lycra company, its insights, and the Lycra brand. So just to respond to you, let me start with the tangibles, okay? The Lycra company is the maker of the Lycra fiber and is the owners of the Lycra, the Coolmax, and Thermalite brands. We basically produce and commercialize these fibers under the brands that I just mentioned for the apparel and the personal care industries. And but the way we position ourselves is being more than a fiber, and the more really talks about, you know, the intangible. Basically, our role is to make the invisible visible. So I will pause here because I guess for many of you on the audience, you may have thought about Lycra, have thought that this is a brand, but not necessarily linking that it is a fiber. And so I really wanted you to know and to introduce you to, this is a spool of Lycra fiber. And, you know, you cannot see here, maybe, let's see if you get closer to the video, but that is the fiber that stretches, and the secret is the recovery power. That is really the secret that makes, you know, no bag and sag, that makes feet to stays, that sculpts and shapes and so on. So I want you to introduce it because, you know, you are in the UK and consumers may think it's biking shorts, others may think it's like a surfwear suit, others hosiery. So I really want to introduce, you know, what Lycra fiber is, and basically leave you with the with a quote of a designer, famous designer we have collaborated, that's Zach Posen, and you know, he quotes that life without Lycra would be very rigid. So, that's really the intangible part of the being a brand. It's like the values and all that the brand can be, and all the stories that you can tell about the brand. So, yeah. So I hope I have responded you.
I think just showing us the fiber in real life was really brilliant, and I think most of us can identify with Lycra, Denise. Certainly coming out of 18 months sitting at home, I'm sure you'll come on to talk a little bit about how you've noticed people's behavior change over the last couple of months and how that's hopefully benefiting the brand. But I love how you talk about the brand as an invisible ingredient, a secret ingredient. And the Lycra company is an ingredient brand with a largely B2B audience. However, you have become a household name, as I've just mentioned, and all of us are very familiar with Lycra. So what's the success? How have you been able to achieve that?
Well, for me, if I look, that's a decision that the leaders have taken many years ago. The Lycra brand, the Lycra fiber was invented, and it has like 63 years. And it is considered a modern fiber, if you think a contemporary modern fiber. And the reason for that is because during the 62 years, it kept consistently investing in innovation, into new marketing approaches, services and solutions. And because we have this business model where we develop every step of in this case, apparel value chain, right? Through the use of ingredient brand, this allowed us to have and develop like longer-term value creation, the consistency, the work, the year after year, and this approach on bringing relevant value propositions, was mentioned to Nicola early on, to both trade and consumers. I mean, if you are not bringing value and if you are not being relevant, then you are not creating value and fidelizing your customers. No, so today I do think that we have a very different market position because we were able to invest every year and continue with this push and pull and this ingredient business model. I mean, we are very far from being considered a commodity company. We have, as a brand, like 90% awareness globally. In the UK, 99%, in Brazil, 99%. We have more than 1 billion garments that are identified with the Lycra brand. And that's incredible, really. Like, it's a real, I think, case study of ingredient brand that has, has brought relevant innovations to consumers and kept updated with, consumers, media, the way they communicate, the way we interface. But we are going to speak about this, I think, later on in terms of customer journeys.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the point that you make around innovation and how you have helped I think you call them, Denise, your host brands actually also innovate is super interesting. And some of the conversations that we're having with quite a range of clients at the moment as we emerge out of the pandemic, I see two different behaviors. One is there are brands out there who are in a self-preserve mode, where they're really just trying to protect market share with product portfolios that they currently have and probably had going into the pandemic. And then there are brands like the Lycra company who are really innovating their way out of the pandemic and really taking advantage in some of the most fundamental changes that we've seen in the history of most of our marketing careers, and how you're taking product innovation, service innovation and touch points, relationships, partnerships, and really starting to drive the future of the business forward. So I guess the key question that I'm sure we'd all love to hear from you about, Denise, is how is innovation driving the future of the Lycra company across all of your markets? And how are you capitalizing on some of these new behaviors that we see emerging?
Well, innovation is part of our core. That's part of our core strategy. Is we have about minimum 2-3 different innovations launched and announced in a given year. And this is because we are present in different regions with different consumers and cultures, and also different garment categories. So we are on tops and bottoms and really and really like the whole pandemic, to bring it to your point, was a big disruption for everybody. A big disruption for consumers, for the business, and it was a big wake-up call. And the trends of casualization, versatility, easy care, inclusivity were already there, but the pandemic just accelerated together with sustainability. So with the pandemic, because we were already working and we haven't launched these innovations, we were really fast to respond to the market. So innovation and the ability to have, media that cuts across, and communication channels and collaborations along the value chain and to the very end consumers really allowed us to be on a pole position on a situation like a disruption, like the pandemic. Just to give an example, before the pandemic, we developed a new patent pending technology, which I'm going to promote here. It's called Lycra Adaptive Fiber. And basically this whole story that I told you about the Lycra being, the secret being the recovery power, is that this polymer, really the secret is the polymer that brings this, the way it attracts back is really adaptive. So it fits, one size fits you more, not all, but more, right? And basically it's like an instantaneous snapback. So when you are at rest, the fiber accommodates. When you are in a movement, it goes with you. It's like a second skin. And, there's, well, we have the patent, we're waiting for the patent to be granted, but there's no other company that has a solution like that, a solution for shapewear, a solution for denims, a solution for knits, for fitness. And I know you are a big sports person, right? I mean, so the whole athleisure happened, the home office happened, and we were there already. And now that people are coming back on the hybrid mode and, coming back to the offices, I mean, we have seen like a surge growth on the denim categories, because denim with comfort. People want to have comfort, right? They don't want to give away for things that they have conquered. So, yeah.
I actually, from a consumer behavior perspective, and looking at, how my own life has changed over the last few months, I think we all found ourselves at the work desk at home for a few hours, get up, walk the dog, come back, sit down for another few hours, get up, do something else. And I think we're not going to wear one thing for a few hours, get changed to walk the dog, then come back and get changed again. Then, and I just think the whole concept of the agility, the adaptivity that you talked about in this new fiber just reflects modern day lives. I think, as we look to relearn going back into the office and working from home some days a week, I think that's exactly, and we can see it in fashion. We can see how fashion is changing, and people are not coming to work dressed in business suits anymore. So I think you've hit the nail on the head. The other area that's so closely related to innovation, and again, we're seeing so much of this come from the Lycra company, is the whole concern that we have as consumers around sustainability. And, it's a practice that so many of us are now bringing into our marketing activities. And one very good reason for doing that is, some recent research that we've studied across Europe shows that as we emerge from the pandemic, yes, we're worried about the virus, but actually people are more worried now about climate change, more worried about plastics, more worried about the environment, and sustainability is now one of the next biggest paradigms that we need to worry about. In fact, in a piece of research from Hall and Partners, they talked about the value shift globally is around 69% in the wake of the pandemic. And when we look at the Lycra company and some of the most amazing work that you're doing with recent campaigns that you've launched around circularity, I think it shows an organization, one, you're reflecting modern lifestyles in your adaptive fiber technology, but two, in launching campaigns like this, it's really showing people that you have a purpose really at the heart of everything that you're doing. So Denise, tell us please about circularity, how it works, how people are reacting to it, and I think importantly, how it's becoming an important part of your retail partners' ecosystems also.
So, well, I really wanted to share with all the audience that this whole theme about sustainability actually is going to be very, very close now, about 10 years. About 10 years, so we started it's not like a recent thing, as a recent theme that was launched as a program, really like under a program, a sustainability program, 10 years ago with internal name of Planet Agenda. And basically Planet Agenda comes with 3 pillars, one on manufacturing excellence, the other one on product innovation, and the third one on social environment. I mean, just telling this story just to say that we are very serious about our value proposition, and so we are not, going to, the latest trends. No, we, this whole mentality, internalization about sustainability happened like a decade ago, and we take pride of our ESG credentials. So to respond to you, and this past June, we are really proud to share with all of you that we launched a campaign, and the campaign is really like keeping the loop with the Lycra company, and it's basically an invitation for customers and experts. There is a sustainability that wants or uses sustainable materials that can be recycled at the end of life, and therefore reducing textile waste, to come and join us, because with that, on collaboration, we can actually close the loop. If you think that we are a raw material provider on the tangible, right? For us to work on these value dimensions, we needed to join forces. It's a collective effort. So that's the reason why we launched this campaign, Keeping the Loop. We have created a forum where we bring experts on the field to explore topics about circularity. To invite partners to come and have that discussion with us. So we sum the sum of the parts, raw materials, fabric making, garment making, that extends the life of a garment, and and on a circular economy, right? So I would just say that we are doing our part. We are conscious that we are one part of the solution, but the overall solution resides on really the collaboration. And so just to kind of illustrate on the product innovation, we have today offerings under the Comex Thermolite and the Lycra brands under the sustainability franchise we call EcoMade, right? That are using textile waste or PET bottles to make, to provide to mills to make fabrics and therefore garments. We also have fantastic technologies that extend the life of a garment. If we think that the second-hand market will double in 5 years, and that will represent a $77 billion of a business, So that's the reason why we collaborate and talking about the host brand, with the Levi's, with Patagonia, with Vestiaire, with REI. And, I was very happy to be sitting here and listening to Vestiaire Collective, because I am a customer of this Vestiaire Collective, and I was very happy to have them here in the forum because they do have the sustainability mindset on their e-commerce. So, well, I hope I have shared the highlights of the sustainability program at the Lycra company.
Absolutely, and I think the point that really has jumped out for me is not only are you innovating at a product level, but you're also innovating at a life cycle level where you're really trying to make sure that your products are long lasting. And as you move into that, second place market, that people can still buy Lycra with confidence, knowing that even if it is a second-hand as opposed to first-hand product, it's still going to have that same level of performance, which I think is incredible. And I guess just to switch into the space of commerce as we look to our 2022 plans. I'm sure most of us this afternoon are in the midst of 2022 planning, and we look out at, for growth opportunities. Most of us as brands and retailers really need to keep people in our ecosystem. And by doing that, we need to demonstrate to people that we understand their behaviors, we understand the channels that they engage with us on, we understand the touch points, we understand the moments. And those are changing. As marketeers, I think we're often challenged to really understand those customer journeys and how and where and when do we engage people on their terms in a way that is relevant to what their needs are. So as you look to launch all of these new products, Denise, and you move into the circular economy, what are the new channels or the new touch points that the Lycra company is working on now to make sure that you stay engaged and you stay relevant with your consumers?
So I have to disclose exciting news before actually the formal communication. So I'm doing this right now at this moment, November 2nd. So Tuesday next week, we are officially launching with campaign Lycra One. And Lycra One stands for the Online Network Exchange. It's a gated portal. Really, it's a gated portal where we invite our customers to come and see, and it's a one-stop shop online virtual portal where everything that today is available on a day-to-day operations via your account manager, via our dealers on the day-to-day is going to be there with digital services. So it's basically is the portal where you can find our latest. One can find our latest innovations, knowledge center, certification services, request for the Lycra or the Comex Thermolite hang tags, the use of our trademarks, so trademark licensing agreements, and I think that this is a service that we have been always supporting the trade with. But now we are going even further because what we are doing is to launch like a sourcing services. So brands and retailers will be able to go there and look into the fabric library, look into the innovations that we have collaborated with our mill partners that develops fabrics. And so, this is unique. There is no fiber company that can provide this space, this center of excellence, I would say. And so we are announcing this on 2nd of November. But I want to go further because this is only the first phase. Because once we have like fabrics that contains our products, then that we have garment makers and brands and retailers requesting for the hang tags. What I'm really excited is to have the consumer facing side of it. So how we will promote, that to, the different parts of the world, the push and pull model of Lycra from, upstream to consumers and from consumers to upstream and get that virtuals circle, the loop, right? The loop into being relevant in the agendas of our key partners.
It's such an incredible proof point, I think, really, to the whole story of the Lycra company. The fact that you are now, to get to that virtuous circle, connecting mills with manufacturers and closing that loop, is highly credible. And I think, to allow that story to be published, if you will, to consumers so that they can actually see the legitimacy of everything that you're creating is unique. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't know any other textile company who is doing anything like this, and that level of co-creation and that level of partnership that's happening is really, really, really compelling. We've talked, Denise, about innovation. We've talked about sustainability. We've talked about purpose. We've talked a little bit about personalization. As you look ahead, into a crystal ball, and you look at growth for the Lycra company over the next couple of years, which of those dimensions do you think are really going to drive the business forward?
Well, I think I've mentioned that innovation is part of our core strategy and core business. So, and then we touch based on two of the really like personal mandate. Our CEO drives it to the heart of his core, which is basically the flagships of digital transformation and sustainability. There's one other pillar that I mentioned, but I will make it official, right? It's like, which is collaboration. So we are looking to different connectors of the value chain and companies that shares of our values, and really join the competencies to really bring like relevant consumers and to trade value propositions. In our view, we are only going to be successful if we make our partners successful. And a way to bring more success and to speed and fast track that is really on knowing to who you partner with, and and work in collaboration. So these are the four pillars of our growth strategy going forward.
And they are, I think, the growth pillars that most people would say are the crucial ones and critical ones for many brands, I think, going forward. I think the difference, Denise, is you actually have very, very tangible and very clear programs and offers and services that now sit behind each one of those. And I guess the final theme to cover off in our conversation, and I invite anyone who does have a question to get ready as we open up the Q&A, is just around personalization. And, we all talk about personalization today, don't we? We talk about the role of data. We talk about many things that are, relevant to our consumers. And I guess your competitive edge in driving adoption and conversion is slightly different in that you are working in partnership with other brands. You are the ingredient, they are the host brands. Although listening to you today, I think the Lycra company is probably driving some of those relationships. But how are you helping address the trend of personalization and the need for personalization in the whole fashion and apparel space?
Well, I think in some ways we share with your company some of the ways and ways about going on personalization, in the sense that we use the data, we use consumer insights, right? And with that, with those of consumer insights and data, we work out our science to deliver like these compelling innovations. And so, and because we, as I said, we are global and we are local, I would say, The way we personalize is really having this collaborative approach with brands and retailers. Each brand and retailers, what we call the hosting brand, will have their different stories, their different agendas. That doesn't mean that we cannot upgrade their stories or that we can bring the stories to them. But in the end of the day, the way that consumer will receive that story is really like a collaboration that I always want to illustrate that in the case of doing business with the Lycra company, it's not a 1 + 1 = 2. It could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5, and that talks about the whole intangibles of creating value, right? And so that's the way I think we can end up with different consumers and customer journeys, different storytelling, because we are talking about different garment categories, different performance attributes, different technologies. Do you want shaping? Do you want sculpting? Do you want a soft comfort? Do you want to have comfort on away from the body garment, or do you want to have like the performance of a compression to be to run? And so I think that's really like the beauty and the challenge of being an ingredient brand working with a host brand. But I think that the challenge is what makes it very exciting. I think we discussed this, Michelle, that I see Lycra as really like the engine that makes a garments be live, that makes you be live, you have your freedom of movement, you having your empowerment, and that's why I'm so passionate about this brand. But I'm suspicious.
No, I share your passion, Denise. So does we do have 2 questions. Actually, there's 3. 2 from Heidi and 1 from Janine, and I think Heidi also shares your passion. So Heidi would like to know, what are some of your favorites at the Lycra company? And secondly, you talked about collaboration, and what are the collaborations that you're most proud of?
Sorry, Heidi asked one of my favorites at the Lycra.
What are some of your favorites at the Lycra company? So of the innovations that you've
my favorites
brought to market, your favorites, yeah.
She knows it's Lycra eco-made, and she knows that because we collaborate together on driving the importance of this fiber. But one of my favorites is really a technology called Lycra fusion fiber that's really for hosiery, which prevents lathering to happen. That's really like, it's not you don't have a run on the rolls, on the hosiery, and that's really like for me it's incredible innovation. Like adaptive fiber we spoke about, and I think this is exciting because it will change the way consumers experience a garment. It's going to provide a total new wearing experience, and I think the men will love this because they will, men likes to be comfortable, and they will want to have, and they will specify, I want a garment with Lycra adaptive fiber. So the other ones that I love together with Lycra Sports, because like you, I shared of sports. I'm addicted to running, so it's Lycra Sports and Lycra Extra Light Fiber. Lycra Extra Light Fiber in a swimsuit or a bikini, it gives you like 10 times longer, the durability attribute of a garment that would not contain that fiber, because it's chlorine resistant, it's resistant to sun tanning, lotions, and things like that. So it's really beautiful. I mean, consumers will not understand how good the Lycra fiber is.
I couldn't agree more. I think, in this conversation and prepping for this conversation, I am already a consumer of the Lycra company, but I had no idea of the level of innovation that's happening in this space, in this category. And I think that in itself, that's almost a challenge. It's like, how do you how do you educate everyone? You know, how do you help people understand that there is so much innovation in this space? And I think, you know, when you talk about how you've seen such growth in men buying into Lycra and into the category, I think just shows the extent of consumer behavior that is out there. There is also one question which I think is a really interesting one for you, and that is about your hang tags. So clearly the hang tag is a very valuable asset because it's the quality mark, it's the assurance that, you know, people are buying into quality Lycra. And this question is around how do you take that further? So it could be perceived as a tactic, although I actually think it's quite strategic because it's quality mark, but how do you take something like the hand tag? And it's almost like the intel inside, isn't it? How do you turn that into a really valuable asset, which it already is to a degree?
Yes, in the end of the day, we are a brand into a garment when, you know, consumers can see the hang tag and can read the copy points and what that garment is doing for you. That's how they know that a garment will last 10 times more than a non-treated garment, etc. But the way we are going forward is really to keep, you know, all the good things that we have in terms of the physical hang tag, and continue doing so, because there are brands and retailers that, you know, use hang tags, but there are others that just place the logo on a packaging, and we have, as I said, billions of garments with the logo imprinted, with the claims and copy points on, you know, why Lycra fiber is there and for what Lycra fiber is doing there in that garment. But what we are doing and working hand in hand with our brands and retailers is on what we are calling internally virtual hang tags. So basically digital devices that can, you know, again, can be personalized to the host brand to explain, you know, what that garment is doing and what is different, what is the difference that garment is doing for that specific consumer, and what is the value and benefits that are bringing to that consumer. So yeah, so basically digital assets that we are putting for brands and retailers, or collaborating with brands and retailers to best communicate it to their customers.
That's great, and it's the obvious extension, isn't it, is to digitize that and actually have the whole, you know, what you've just talked about with Lycra One and the storytelling that has happening on the website. You could almost bring that into the space of the hand tag, so that each and every piece is almost individualized, you know, so that the story of the fiber really comes to life. And if we have time, I don't know if we still have time, but there is another question around sustainability, and just expanding on some of the products that you've launched that are, you know, part of the sustainability drive, circular economy. What has the uptake on these fibers been like? Are you seeing, you know, real preference by consumers as they're choosing more of the sustainable fibers that last longer and that can then be upcycled and recycled?
I would say yes. We have, you know, commercial programs with big retailers. You can look and see, such as H&M, CNA. They are huge retailers and distribute a lot of garments here in Europe and globally. And so to the point that all of them have like sustainable programs in commerce with us since before the pandemic. It just shows to me that consumers are willing to pay and want to have products that meet sustainability criteria. But I'll just say that we have been actually very successful on these partnerships with brands and retailers, exactly because they are looking for it's not only the product, they are looking for who is the supplier of that product. So they are looking to, it's not only because of the brand, it's because behind the brand, there is the Lycra company, and there is consistency, there is quality, there is integrity. And this adds to the whole value dimension of a brand, I think.
Completely. And I think, you know, particularly as we see people's need for confidence in more sustainable solutions, everything that you've talked about this afternoon in terms of the investment behind all of these products, the innovation, the technology, is reassurance for people that it's all being done in the right way, which I think is hugely important. And I also think that leads to people then being reassured in the quality that they buy. That it has all of the benefits that you want from a piece of clothing, but it's not just the tangible product benefits, it's all the emotional benefits that go with it. And I think it's so empowering, I think, what you're doing, Denise, for so many people who may not have been, you don't have to be sporty to wear Lycra. I think just the empowerment that it gives you just to live an everyday great life is fantastic. I guess just one last call out for any questions if anyone has. Otherwise, I would just like to say a huge thank you, Denise. I've loved getting to know you and learning more about the Lycra company. I thoroughly love the innovation that you're bringing to the marketplace. Long may it last, and I wish you every success. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. Hope you have learned something or taken something away from it. And let's all buy into the Lycra company.
Thank you, Michelle. You made my words and my day. Thank you. Thank you so much for
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Denise. I think that was just a fabulous end to today's session and some really amazing insights. So thank you so much. That's it, everyone. Thank you for your time. I think we can agree we've learned a huge amount today. And I do encourage everyone once again to connect on LinkedIn. And I also hope that today's session sparks many more discussions between you all. I certainly know I look forward to connecting with some new colleagues. And a thank you, of course, to all of the speakers who have given up their valuable time and joined us today and shared their insight. Until the next one, please be safe, be well, and goodbye.
Thanks, Nicola. Bye-bye, everyone.
See you.